Parasocial Don Benito's. 1 second, please. Okay. AN says, hurrah for the early bird club. What's up? Me says, okay. Alright. Ricky says, okay. Dylan says, hi Don. Hello, Dylan. Levin says, please, I show meat recreation. No, I'm not into showing my penis on camera. 1 second, please. 1 second, please. I'm doing something. I apologize. 1 second. Okay. Omega says hi. Hello, Omega. Alex says hi, Don. Hello, Alex. Confused says hi, Cutie. Hello, Confused. Prawley says yo, Don. Hello, Prawley. H says streaming in the morning. Yeah, I'm streaming at a different time right now. Tabby says thanks for the raid last month. You're welcome. I think I remember it being fun. Qwerty says, do you know Daniel Larson? Yeah, the guy that ate the feces mac and cheese. Raylove says, okay. The Real says hello. Hello, The Real. Void says, did you gawk it today? No comment. Ricky says, have you ever met someone IRL who watches your streams? No, that probably will never happen. Raccoon says, rate my profile picture. Oh, that's a cute raccoon. Pizza says, why so early? Just the way my schedule is. I can't say exactly why. 1 second, please. 1 second, please. Okay, thank you. Scarp says, I have a bobber. Okay. It says, Donnie, we missed you. Hello. KO says, how are you, Don? I'm fine. H says, why don't you stream regularly nowadays? I can't say, but I plan to return to that. I want to stream every day. Dylan says, rate my profile picture. It's too close up. CMC says, Donnie, I missed you. What's up, CMC? H says, rate my profile picture. Terrible. Joe says, good evening, Don. Hope you had a good day. It's been 45 minutes. Have a drink. It hasn't been 45 minutes. Jack says, there's a girl I like and she told me she loves me. Should I hit? No, you shouldn't. Prawley says, my gray sheets have white stains. Oh, that's pretty gross. Levin says, do you always sit down because your boyfriend is too rough during? And that's not the reason. Slip says, taco please, it laggin'. What? Money says, bro, I slept through 10 of my alarms. Wow, that's terrible. You gotta be more disciplined. Dylan says, rate my profile. Dude, I already did that. Prawley says, I already read that. Raccoon says, World Cup is rigged for Argentina. Is it? New Mexico Super Chats, hey Don. Why do you stream at the most random times? Because my schedule, personal life schedule, is all over the place. Boot says, where are 2025 videos? The videos that I made, those are privated now. Thank you, New Mexico. Timer extended. Joy says, hi, good morning, Donnie. Hello, Joy. Jack says, why though, bro? Well, looking at your profile picture, you have that Digital Circus Kid Show. So, it seems like you're a minor, so I wouldn't recommend having what you said. Raylove says, I miss the old profile picture. Me too. Ashlyn says, bro, Don, it's been like a week. It's only been 3 days. Deku says, is Spain gonna win the World Cup? I hope so. Block says, did you jerk it? No comment. Vintage says, hi. Hello. Vintage. Cash says, GG. Okay. Ash, already read that. Ryan says, do you murder people off stream? No, I don't. H says, it's night for me, so bye. See ya. Goodbye. Twix says, hi. Hello, Twix. Dutch says, Don, are you gay? Be honest. No, I'm not. Ashlyn says, that is not true. It's been like 8 days. No, it hasn't. Casey says, hi. Hello, Casey. Parrot says, rate my profile. Parrot 1 to 10. It's a bad angle. You gotta take a better photo. Ryan says, I'm not convinced. You're not convinced with what? I already forgot. Do you murder people? No, I don't murder people off stream. Isaac says, do you like dicks? No. Sean says, do you like large, long sausage? No. Dylan says, my adult supervisor says hi. Hello, Dylan's adult supervisor. The Stink says, are your farts stinky? No comment. Vintage says, what's with these personal questions? I don't know. And I don't mind. It's okay. Money says, what the fuck? Yeah, I know. Sophia says, I love your streams. Thanks. And thank you, Ashton, for the GG easy. I appreciate it. Ryan says, okay, I believe you now. Okay, cool. Fulton says, I'm a YouTuber too. Awesome. Arthur says, eating cheese. Sounds good. Raylove says, would you rather fight 3 10-year-olds or 1 Godzilla? Well, maybe the Godzilla because the fighting 10-year-olds sounds evil. New Mexico says, where's our goat Ramon? I don't know, dude. K says, messy. Alright. JK says, hi bro, how's it going? Early today, eh? Yeah, I'm doing it way earlier than I usually do. And I'm fine. SX says, my grandma was in a room with guys that had big sausages. Okay. Sherilyn says, I like men, that's cool. Monster says, can you shout out my small channel? No, it probably sucks. SX says, I already read that. Thank you, Ricky, for the Chuck E. Cheese coin. Ashton says, I will donate Uncle Ert at 25 likes. Sounds good. Thank you in advance. Drift says, hi. Hello, Drift. Silas says, I like trains. Yeah, okay. Block says, do you remember me? No, I don't. Your boy says, yo, what's up, Don? Did you listen to Lux Eterna by Metallica? Yeah, I did. I didn't like it. Money says, these motherfuckers need help. Alright. Prawley says, Don, can you poop a goon? No. Casey says, K. Alright. Jelly says, I'm almost at 500 subs. Okay, that's cool. Thank you, 48 State Fishing, for the laughing disco, and Ricky for the 5 Chuck E. Cheese coins. That says, do you like Chick-fil-A? I do. EK says, moon landing fake. Alright. Random says, hi. Hello, Random. That one guy says, Epstein or Diddy. I'm not choosing between that. Thank you, Ricky, for the disco ball abomination. EK says, moon landing fake. Okay. Coco says, do you like Spain or Argentina? I like Spain. Leo says, hi. Hello, Leo. Hosea says, 50k, red or black? Well, I'm wearing the color red, so I say red. Yummer says, hi, I'm here. Hello, Yummer. Andrea says, hi. Hello, Andrea. Swung says, why do you change your voice? I do it when it feels right. Ducky says, how many diz you choking on? I'm not sucking any dicks. The edit says, what games do you like? I like Minecraft. Charlie says, my best friend broke up with me because she started talking to a new girl. Oh, I'm sorry about that. Bat says, have you ever been told you look like Charlie Kirk? Yeah, I have been. Trick says, bro is not tough. Okay. Shadow says, do you remember my profile picture? Yeah, I do. Ricky says, how would you react if you got a $500 donation? I wouldn't jump around. I would still sit in my chair. I would just say thank you and move on, basically. It's already happened before. Sophia says, where is that Uncle Ert at? I don't know. Swung says, can you show your dick? I don't want to. This says, what is one place you'd like to visit? I'd like to visit Hawaii. Thank you, Harry, for the 3 Chuck E. Cheese coins. Vincent says, is your background a video? If so, what's the name of the video? Sometimes, I don't know if you know this, but YouTubers put the credits in the description, so maybe you can check that. Ipu says, Ku Klux Klan, do you love doing this for hours? It's not bad. Jelly says, ballsack reveal win. Never. Ethan says, what's the music? To be honest, I forget what it's called. I hate to say this, but it's actually not in the description. I forgot to put it in the description. I'll have to update that. JS has been a while. Hello, JS. Cordy says, why don't you use a green screen for the background? Because green screens look too artificial, and I don't like that. Ashlyn says, my friend's cat died today. I'm sorry. Thank you, Ricky, for the 5 100s. Ducky says, how many people you crack? I don't disclose my body count. It's Crazy says, has any movie made you cry? No. Anonymous says, would you rather suck Ronaldo or Messi dick? I can't choose, dude. Monster says, who is your celebrity crush? Mine is Abraham Lincoln. I don't have a celebrity crush. Vin says, can you please stop streaming and do something with your life? Streaming isn't my whole life. Cookie says, you're boring. Okay. Ramon super chats, bro, if you can't show the hog, can you at least show the outline? No, I'm never gonna do that. Timer extended. AN says, yeah, I get it. I get it. I get it. JK says, I look like the look of your face in the screenshot just now, haha. Oh, you like that look I do sometimes? Okay. JS says, it's a touch decision, isn't it? What? Alfie says, Ramon is definitely an NPC. No, he's not. Bob says, can you rate my Pikachu drawing? If you put it as your profile picture, yeah, maybe. Raccoon says, Switzerland is the best country. Alright. Block says, smile or gay. I don't care. Think what you want to think. Zay says, you like Green Day? I haven't listened to them. Liv says, hi cutie. Hello, Liv. CMC says, bro, if you can't, yeah, I get it. I get it. Thank you, Toka Lily, for the soccer trophy. Hef says, show us your hog, please, just the bulge no. I could, but I'm not gonna do that. Monster says, would you rather have world peace or end world hunger? World peace. Ramon super chats, if we was in prison together, I could earn 3 packs of smokes from you per session. I don't know what that means. It's probably something sexual, knowing Ramon. Anyways, timer extended. JS says, the Messi Ronaldo decision is a tough one, isn't it? It's something that I don't want to contemplate. It just sounds gross. Papu says, don't let the haters get to you. Thank you. Ducky says, tickle my tippy and call me Ricky. No. Abis says, are you okay? Yeah, I am okay. Mr. Tomic says, are you forklift certified? No. Steven says, what is a category of games you like? I like nonsensical games where there's no objective. Official says, why? Why what? Thank you, that one sentinel, for the 4 preschool stars. Mar says, you're a low-key, hear me out. Okay. Malfunction says, bro, what the fuck is with the people? Okay. RJ says, how is your day? It's pretty good. Dominique says, what makes you happy? I don't know what that means. SX says, can you pop a goon? Nah. Noob says, hi. Hello, noob. Jelly says, I will tickle your pickle for nickel. I'm not interested. SX says, can you pop... Dude, already... Raccoon says, do bad people deserve to die? No. Charlie says, what do you think of my stuffy in my profile picture? Oh, your stuffed animal? That's pretty cute. Dog, animal. Plitz says, do you goon? No comment. Block says, can I get dick rubs please? No. Aiden says, look at my... Yeah, I don't want to. Django says, your forehead is killing me. Okay. Raylove says, power washing simulator. I think I've watched DSP Gaming play that. Your boy says, what music do you like, man? I like the background music in Red Dead Redemption 1. Cookie says, no comment. Yeah, that's me. Mister says, racial slur. Okay. Aiden says, I want to try some dick. No, I don't. Super says, do bad people deserve to be punished? Yes. Nicola says, do you like butt? No. Leo says, how are you dealing with these people? I don't know, dude. Ricky says, are you a badger in disguise? No, I'm just a human. Mark says, was the England versus Argentina game rigged? I don't know much about sports. It's Vox says, bro, if you can't show the hog, can you at least show the outline? I'm crying, he's been doing that for days. He's been doing it for months. Damien says, who's under the table? Nobody. Yuke says, whoa, alright. Extra says, all gears, dual, 525 million. I don't know what you're saying. Thank you, Toka Lily, for the Uncle Alert. Progress says, how are you? I'm pretty good, thank you. AN says, who's behind the TV? It's, there's nobody there. Tickle says, what is the meaning of purpose? They're the same words, basically. Oscar says, you're cool, thank you. And thank you, Wickley, for the plastic flower. Di says, look who we got here. Long time no see. Hello, Di. Nick says, I know who is Progress Fitness. Okay. Levin says, when you go to VidCon, I follow you home and clap them. You're not going to do that. Isaac says, hi. Hello, Isaac. Paige says, you should watch the World Cup final on Sunday. Maybe. I don't know. I'm not too interested. Metal says, is it safe to eat crayons off the floor? No, it's not. It's not okay to eat them in any case. Official says, why do you like Matt? I don't know, dude. Galactic says, can you wheelie a bike? No. Thank you, Ricky, for the preschool stars, and Anime for the sparkles. Rit says, are you Gad? I don't know what that means. Steven says, so sandbox games? Minecraft? Yeah, I like Minecraft. Mason says, can I clap your mom? No comment. Your local says, you like food? Yeah, of course. Uni says, you shave your balls, right? No comment. Official says, how has your day been? And do you have water for later? I mean, as you can see, yeah. Icy says, what's your favorite anime? Spirited Away. CN says, you know BFDI? No. Isn't that some stupid Roblox thing? Scal says, I'm not financially stable and I spent $500 on a mobile game today. Is that okay? Obviously not. Django says, Homer let the Barts out. What? Raylove says, I was playing Roblox and someone was gooning on voice chat in a kid's game. Well, that's despicable. Thank you, Overlay, for the disco ball abomination. Django says, Homer let the Barts out. Okay. Thank you, Ricky, for the stupid little turtle drinking water. And because of that gift, I'll take a sip of water myself. 1 second, please. Thank you again, Ricky. IN says, wouldn't you responding be a comment? Sure. Shell says, Dr. Pepper. I don't have that. I like it, though. Joe says, Homer let the Barts out. Okay, I don't know what you're saying. C says, if reading chat is your power, what are you without it? I'm a boring streamer. Mew says, are you abstracting in the background? No, I hate the digital circus. Thank you, Ellen, for the silly little husky with the microphone. Thank you, Ellen. CN says, BFDI is a YouTube series. Okay. Sach says, I just got headphones. Cool. Callie says, Jesus loves you and he died for you. I don't believe so. Star says, blah 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 blah, penis is an anus. Wow, I've never seen that before. Thank you, Ellen, for the England. Meg says, what country do you want to visit someday? Maybe Peru. Tita says, can you say we love you, Tekka? No. Luff says, can I have Bobucks? I don't know what that is. Nicola says, what football team do you support? I don't really care about football. Django says, TA to C is trash. Yeah, I agree. Ethan says, I just got hit by a car. I'm sorry. Aiden says, titties. Alright. Yo-Yo says, hey bro, do you remember me? No, I don't. Thank you, TTV, for the Chuck E. Cheese coins. The 5 of them, thank you. Oscar says, what's your favorite movie? Eyes Wide Shut. Mason says, can I stick something in your mom's anus? No comment. Arrow says, I'm the best Elements Divided VR player trust. I don't know what that is. By the way, thank you again, Ellen, for the stupid little husky. And TTV for, what is this? Some cooking eggs in a pan? Thank you, TTV Orbs. Annette says, remember me? No, I don't. Chiro says, do you remember me? No, I don't. RT says, you're probably the worst YouTuber. Okay. Roy says, wish me happy birthday. No. Charlie says, Snickers or Twix. I don't like chocolate. Boston says, queer. Alright. Google says, remember me? No, I don't. But I do recognize that profile picture. We says, can you raid me, please? What is a raid? If you describe it to me, maybe. Your boy says, do you remember me? Yeah, I do. Lee says, do you love your mother? No comment. Tav says, hi, I'm back. Hello, Tav. Casual says, can you draw the monster under my bed? I don't know what that looks like. Axel says, do a face reveal. I am doing it right now. Lisa says, are you mentally okay? Yeah. Stars, I already read that, dude. TK says, have you watched Twitter? No, I haven't. Short says, hi. Hello, Shorts. And thank you, TTV Orbs, for the 35 kindergarten stars. Muoy says, I am subbing and bye. Goodbye. Chiro says, it's made of glass. I don't know what you're saying. Ulix says, why is everyone saying swear words? I don't know, and I don't mind. Django says, do you remember my nan? No, I don't. Ma says, do you play games? Yeah. Isaac says, what's your favorite food? The cheeseburger. TK says, hi. Hello, TK. Yor says, wobbly wiggly wobbly wiggly. Alright. Brad says, what are sunflower behind pea shooter or pea shooter? I do the sunflower behind. Kenneth says, can you sing a song? No, I can't. Austin says, hi. Hello, Austin. Stanley says, gay. Alright. Confused says, I'm sad because I can't stop the same freaking bullshit argument inside my head. I'm too tired now. You should distract yourself with something. Bang says, what are your thoughts on Minecraft? It's a fun game. A person says, bro, what is it? Levin says, bro, where you in the Bonnie Blue 1000 guys challenge, even though you're gay, or did she refuse? I never participated in that. Michael says, aren't you tired, man? No. Jack says, H-I-K-J, I don't know what you're saying. Shino says, do you remember me? No. Anna says, have you played Call of Duty? Yeah, I have. Confused says, but how long do I keep distracting myself? Forever. Bounty says, what's your favorite TV show? Breaking Bad. Christian says, it's my birthday. I'm not gonna say it. Hudson says, what's your type? Shorter than me. Alicia says, what you taught me? No comment. Gradient says, yo, how are you? I'm good. Wes says, how are you so calm with these diabolical questions? Maybe desensitization is a factor. X says, I'm a, what are you? Stanley says, I'm subbed and one's I gifting. I don't know what you're saying, but I thank you, I guess. Levin says, why was my profile blurred in the stream a few days ago? I don't know what you're saying. Thank you, Silly, for the flow state. Two-Face says, can you crack W? I don't know what you're saying either. FG says, rate my profile picture. Oh, that's a really cute cat. Is it wearing a... what is that pink thing? Seam says, why are you streaming at a different time than usual? Because I don't have a schedule. Oni says, racial slur was here. Okay. Flaming says, you look like my grandpa. Okay. Silly says, cats or dogs or other. Nothing. I don't like pets that much. Milo says, dumbass. Okay. Raylove says, penguin emoji or fish emoji. I like the penguin better. Sigma says, is it nice to goon in front of kindergartners? I don't do that. Django says, what do you like more, communism or democracy? The latter. Stinky says, put a foot cam. No, that's stupid. Sophia says, remember you said racial slur was a racial slur? Yeah, I do. And I just did now. Derry says, you look like a transgender controller. I don't know what you mean by the controller part. Bounty says, what's your favorite YouTuber? I like Sal C1. CN says, can you do a backflip? No, I can't. Korn says, I was in the chat of few weeks. I became famous. Okay, I don't remember you. Sophia says, it's not lol. Search it up on Google. Levin says, you know what I'm saying? Why was my profile picture blurred? I don't know what you're saying. Isaac says, how tall are you? I'm 5'7". Sai says, rate my profile picture. 0.5. Russ says, Homer let the bard out. Okay. Spock says, mayonnaise. Alright. Ruz says, can you collab with Bonnie Blue? No, I don't have any interest in that. Real says, make me famous. I don't have that power. It's Vox says, purple or blue crayons based off taste. I have never eaten a crayon before. Rose says, do you like cat's eye? No, I don't. Charlie says, do you like MHA? I don't know what that is. OS says, Jesus did not rise and fly into the clouds. I agree. Conjun says, do you have a life? Yeah, I do. GT says, ha, alright. Shaz says, why are you so dry? Personality. Willem says, remember me? No, I don't. Vicky says, don't listening to the haters. Cheer it up. You're a nice, chill guy. Thank you. G says, I like Durf. Okay. Nania says, you rate my profile picture. Absolutely terrible. Vicky says, I already read that. Frostbite says, how old are you? I'm an adult. V1 says, are you gay or straight? I'm straight. LB says, you're so chill, gang. Thank you. And thank you, Frog Hunter, for the 6-7 abomination. And thank you again to Silly for the flow state. Allie says, you look like a serial killer. Alright. Ruz says, can we touch tips? No. Sophia says, yes, racial slur is a derogatory racial slur. I'm correct. Mr. Nonchalant says, emoji. Okay. Oni says, can you rub my feet with baby oil? No. Thank you, Elmo, for the Spain. Locke says, who's the best Spider-Man? Andrew Garfield. Thank you, Alxav, for the 6-7 abomination. Mr. Knife says, I want you to remind you to pay attention to the muscles in your left shoulder. I feel it. I don't care about my posture, for good or for bad. Ray says, the Donaldson. That's me. Bread says, femboy or tomboy? Tomboy. Milo says, it's pronounced Milo, dumbass. I pronounced it correct that time. Conjun says, how many kindergartners do you eat every day? 0. Owen says, daddy come back, I'm not your father. Vicky says racial slur, racial. Okay. G says rip my profile picture. I don't like it. Thank you, Akrav, for the alert. Weston says hi. Hello, Weston. I am Freddy says, am I Freddy or Fred? You are Freddy. Pizen says, I went to a Diddy party last night. He's in jail. Seam says, how do you decide what information is too personal to share? Logic. Well, actually, I'm just pretty paranoid overall. Blake says hello. Hello, Blake. Thank you again, Axav, for the alert. Axav says you're welcome. Thank you. Ashlyn says, but Don, you are my father. No, I'm not. Tom says, racial slur. Okay. Starry says, write my profile picture. I don't like it. Bounty says, Family Guy or Simpson. Thank you, Big Mac, for the trophy cake. This stupid trophy cake thing. Thank you. Big Mac, you're making me hungry. Drew says, is it pink? No comment. AS says, stop ignoring me. I'm not ignoring you. Big Mac says, no problem. Thank you again. A Big Mac wearing VR. New says, are you good? Yeah, I am. Spar says, what's on the TV behind you? It's in the description. Me names, super chats, £1. Thank you, person that I'm pretty sure has like 100,000 subscribers. I'm him says, how you been, bro? I've been good. Starry says, bruh. Alright. Thank you again. Timer extended. Evo says, do you have a telescope? No, I don't. Levin says, you know what I'm saying? You blurred my profile picture in my super chats. I don't remember that. Austin says, what's your hobby? I like video editing. Indifferent says, do you think God stays in heaven because he too lives in fear of what he has created? Spy Kids. Yeah, that's a crazy quote. Big Boy says, what music do you listen to? I like a band I like is Radiohead. No Little says, do you remember me? No, I don't. Thank you, Axav, for the plastic flower. Pyro says, I'll have sexual relations with anyone. Okay. Jelly says, why are people so mean? I don't know. Tav says, hi, I'm back. Hello, Tav. Konjin says, bro, it's Konhijin, not Konjin. Too bad. Almond says, what's your favorite song from Radiohead? I don't know a song, but I like the album Kid A. Bloodthirsty says, have you finally let those people out of your basement? There's never been anyone there. Thank you, Axav, for the England, the 3 Englands. Thank you. Mister says, what do you think of people who hate you? I don't mind. Gray says, racial slur. Okay. Alright. Alright. E says, this stream is tough. Thank you. I appreciate it. Santiago says, rate my profile picture. Oh, the Mexican flag. That's okay. Ashlyn says, wow, I get it. You're my only father. I'm not your father. Arthur says, do you watch the World Cup? No. Thank you, Mint, for the eagle. This stupid little cute eagle. Thank you, Mint. Drop says, rate my profile picture. I don't like it. Circuit says, bong. Okay. Indifferent says, what do you like more, rain or cheese? Cheese. Cheese is tasty. Fergus says, red face emoji. Okay. Flaming says, would you rather have a permanently clogged nose or a pebble in your shoe? A pebble in my shoe. That's gross to have a claw's nose. Haza says, hi. Hello, Haza. Django says, Ottoman Empire or Soviet Union? Ottoman. Your boy says, one day, can you do a stream without the button up? Without this button shirt? Eventually. Santiago says, Mexico or Spain? Spain. Thank you, Stardust, for the Chuck E. Cheese coin. Stanley says, gay. Okay. Ham says, stop ignoring me, bro. Because he said that, I'm not going to read the rest. Conjun says, you know the band Green Day? Yeah, I do. Lever says, can I have 10 seconds of your time? Yeah, you can. Mr. Knife says, smile for once, please. Say something funny. Matthew says, do you remember me? No, I don't. The Lucy says, write my profile picture. Oh, that's cool. A goose with a minigun. I like that. Thank you, Dan, for the Chuck E. Cheese coin. Gray says, I'm sorry for my last comment, Daddy. It's okay. It says, I'm in 7th grade, and if you're in 7th grade, then you should leave the stream. Joshua says, I see dead people. Alright. Win says, do you like gaming? Yeah. Davis says, do you think that Argentina in football is paying money to the refs? No. Pick says, gay hair. Okay. Rat says, do you know where Darth Vader gets his shoes? The Darth Maul. I've heard that before. Lil Rich says, do all the comments pop up? No, there's like thousands of comments that I get, so. Julian says, dummy. Okay. Santiago says, write my name. Santiago is a cool name. A little long-winded, though. Tixeed says, I'm in 3rd grade. Then you should leave the stream, then. 1X says, purple guy in the master bathroom. I don't know what that means. Potate says, dear Mr. Douchebag. Okay. Harrison says, how's your day going? It's going good. Maxon says, hi, I'm having a bad day. I'm sorry about that. Conjun says, that you are kinda a weirdo. Okay. Sweat says, why people racist? I don't know. And I dislike it too. Larry says, what are your sleep patterns like? Sorry, I'm gonna keep that private. Flaming says, does a straw have 1 hole or 2 holes? 1 hole. Dan says, search up owner of gayness. Why? Indifferent says, rain creates cheese. I guess so, but the way I interpreted it was like, do I prefer? I guess you're right. In that context, I would choose rain. Amelia says, are you gay? I am not gay. Rock says, got a job interview today. That's awesome. Apex says, hello. Hello, Apex. And thank you, Kelly, for the 6 kindergarten stars. Basie says, you know Vocaloid like Miku? Yeah, but I don't like it. Levin says, nah, it's literally in a post live. Stop being a something. I don't remember it. Apex says, hello. Hello, Apex. Wem says, do you know Juice WRLD? I do not. Thank you, Dan, for the clutch. Frog says, like, man, no. King says, favorite sport? I don't like sports. Fastest says, can I goon to you? You have my permission. Avia says, Homer drops his soda. Do I don't know what you're saying. Scrua says, what is your favorite genre of movie? Drama. Frog says, I like men. That's okay. That's cool. Avia says, Homer spills the doorway dough. Okay. Frostbite says, how long have you been growing your hair? Since August. Locke says, you think Hitler's gay? No. Though says, you smell, I like sewer. You like sewers? Okay. Com says, how much money you get from streaming? At least like $30 an hour. Daniel says, if you see this, say chicken. There you go. Thank you again to Mint for the eagle and me name for the super chat. The execution says, how's life? Pretty good. Geo says, what's 9 plus 10? 21. Ton says, I'm a black hole. Yeah, I can see that. Zay says, has any comment made you laugh? Yeah, hundreds of times. Bo says, I only saw you laugh once for the past few weeks. I guess you haven't been watching that much. Kat says, what's your opinion on Willy Wonka? It's a good movie. Yum says, why are you parasocial? No, I'm not. It's more about you guys. 3 says, are you okay? Yeah. Santiago says, water time. Not yet. Boppo says, put a fish up my ass. Not interested. It's Vox says, Donny Boy or Mr. Benitez? I prefer Donny. No, Mr. Benitez is better. I love says, you are good enough. Thank you. Me name super chats gazebo. Gazebo. Okay. Lever says, switch once if you need help. I don't need help. Yummy says, what's your name? Don. Thank you, me name, for the super chat. Timer extended. Gazebo. Messi says, jack it. No, I don't want to. Levin says, you told me you remembered it on Discord. I mean, maybe, but I don't remember it now. YT says, hi. Hello, YT. Plucky says, write my profile picture. Kind of boring and low effort. Leo says, hi. Hello, Leo. H8 says, what's your dream car? My dream car is a Tesla. Owen says, you look like you need sleep. Alright. Adoring says, why do you look dead inside? That's just the way I naturally look. Smart says, what's your favorite game? Minecraft. Laura says, do you remember me? No, I do not. Apex says, hello. Hello, Apex. Avia says, Hummer spills the dough do. Okay. Helen says, what's your favorite dino? The Velociraptor. Says, I goon to femboys. Okay. Lever says, raise your hand if you're real. There you go. Jake says, I'm in 10th grade, alright. Zebster says, gang, do you play RL? I don't know what that is. Bibby says, I love my girlfriend. Okay. Pet Bull says hi. Hello, Pet Bull. Tough says, do you have any pets? Yeah, I have some dogs. Thank you again to, who is it? ACAV for the England. The gift, thank you. Pedro says, would you eat a paper towel if it tasted like your favorite food? No, that'd be too unhealthy. Haza says, LRL is Rocket League. Oh, it's an okay game. It's Vox says, Mr. Benitez or Daddy Don. Mr. Benitez. 51 says, written profile picture. Oh, that's pretty cool. Guy on a bike. Bailey says, why do you make that weird face? I don't know, it just comes naturally. Zin says, have you killed someone? No. Eli says, is my profile picture tough? Vigil? No, it's not. Me like says, Kaka. Okay. Monarch says, Daddy, did you miss me? No, I didn't. Sham says, Diva Dawn, you're my favorite drag queen. I'm not that, but thank you. Alf says, you got a girlfriend? No. Riley says, you look like Dumbledore with hair. Okay. Coco says, Messi or Ronaldo? Messi. Helen says, do you like Illuminati sons? I don't know what that is. Slick says, I just broke up with my girlfriend and she said a few minutes after that he was secretly a boy. Oh, that's interesting. Logan says, do you have a boyfriend? No. 51 says, rate my profile picture 1 out of 10. 6. Mister says, I told my wife she was drawing her eyebrows too high. She looks surprised. Okay. Ice says, rate my profile picture. Oh, that's a really cool dog. Diego says, I like your hair, thank you. And thank you, Ghosted Voxy, for this guitar thing. Thank you, Ghosted. I appreciate it. KW says, rate my profile picture. Cute cat. Fun Time says, you look dead. Alright. Yum says, my name, Doe. Let's make a sex toy dildo. I'm not interested. Noah says, would you rather die or poo? The latter. Yankee says, do you remember DJP? I do not. What's that? Is that DSP Gaming? Wasp says hi. Hello, Wasp. Lever says, say racial slur. No, I don't say racial slurs. Arthur says, Dutch, I gave you all I had. Okay. Hi says, rate my profile picture. It's a cute cat. Little says, rate my profile picture. I don't even know what's happening. Me name, super chats. Is race car a palindrome so it can reverse? I guess, yeah. Maybe. I haven't thought about that. I guess, yeah. Joe says, water time. No, it's not. Not says, rate my profile picture out of 10. It's a 0.5. Well, actually, no. A palindrome is just a word thing. I don't think it relates to the actual physical car. I see what you're saying. Like, a palindrome is reverse, and cars you can put it in reverse, but they're two different things. Thank you, God, for the laughing disco abomination. KB says, rate my profile picture. That's a weird cat. Hi says, rate my profile picture. That's a cute cat. Sebastian says, remember me? I was in your stream a month ago. No. Your name's Sebastian with the default profile picture? How do I remember that? Wazi says, opinions on MCR. I don't know what that is. Robert says, hate. Why are you saying that? Carter says, rate my profile picture. Terrible. Ghosted Voxy super chats. Do you like whales? I like killer whales. Those things are one of my favorite animals. They're pretty beautiful. The black and white, I like it a lot. Thank you, Sports, for the party hat. Ghosted, thank you. Timer extended. Loki says, yo, you remember me? No. Pro says, how deep can you swallow in inches? I don't suck dick. Gray says, hi. Hello, Gray. Go says, I like turtles. Alright. Riley says, you're the reason I wish YouTube never removed the thumbs down button. I mean, hate watching is stupid. You should just leave so that I don't, like, get promoted in the algorithm. Bryson says hello. Hello, Bryson. Thank you, Star, for the preschool. Stardust for the preschool stars. Carner says rate my profile picture. I don't like it. Santa says are you autistic? No. Blue says please goon with me. No. Levin says no, I don't like it. Honey says I like poopy panties. Okay. Hagen says dildo sex toy. Alright. Zachary says do you like American football? I do not. Say says a bunch of stupid emojis. Okay. Carter says why don't you like my profile picture? It just looks bland. Bread says femboy or tomboy. I'd say I already answered that. Super says rate my profile picture. I don't like it. Ghost says have a nice day. You too. Ghost. Coconut says do you believe in God? I do not. Back says you like planes. Yeah, they're useful. Geo says morning light hit the kitchen table. Coffee steamed outside, bikes rolled by, and a dog barked once. Nothing big happened, it just felt calm. That's serene. Leonardo says hi. Hello, Leonardo. Mister says you. What about me? R says what's your favorite sport? I don't like sports at all. Elliot says hello. I'm new. Hello, Elliot. BB says do you remember me? You made fun of me last time? No, I don't. Ancient says you should have another water bottle. I do, they're just not in frame. Thank you, Ghosted, for the firework. Thank you, that's worth a lot. Thank you, Ghosted. Firework. It's Vox says Mr. Benitez or Don. I like Miss Don. Scrumptious says my friend's dad is getting married to his sister's mother-in-law. That's crazy. Alex says I like the background. Thank you. C says how would you react if a fan met you in public? I mean, it depends on how the fan would be acting. Like, are they chill? By the way, I'm making an announcement right now. The timer is now locked. Super chats and gifts no longer increase the timer. Icon says your mom is gay. Okay. Ashton says my grandpa just died. I'm sorry to hear that. Yeah, that's terrible. Coconut says, do you need to go outside? I'm busy streaming. Brady says, it's my birthday. Alright. Ibrahim says, panda or cats? Pandas. Love says, so did mine. I don't know what you're saying. Pixelated says, describe VR in one word. It's not its time yet. That's not one word, but thank you, I love God, for the flow state. It's Unstable says, I feel so bad for you reading the weirdest things. It's okay. Alyssa says, would you rather chug all your water or read the first comment? I have no problem reading comments. Alex says, do you get bored talking to idiots all day? No. Rage Quit says, where are you from? I'm from the United States. Zero says, Diddy Do. Okay. Thank you again to a Ghosted Voxy for the firework. I really appreciate it. I appreciate the gift. Chilzy says McDonald's or Taco Bell? McDonald's. Zero says Diddy does. I don't know what you're saying. Nicholas says good boy. Okay. Ulick says say swear word. Well, write one out and I'll say it. Fishy says so we break up then you go live. I don't know you. Ancient says but you should have another one in your background. I don't see the point. Jumping says okay. Living says, are you on stimulants? No, I'm not. Coraline says, when I did VR, I fell onto a table. Oh, that's funny. Tito says, rate my profile picture 1 out of 10. 7. Coconut says, if you read this, you like it meant your comment doesn't have that power. Lincoln says, I have two religious... are you religious? Blah blah blah, racial slur. I'm not religious. Basie says, do you know any anime like Demon Slayer? Yeah, of course I know them, but I haven't watched them. CQ says, I love you. Thank you. Cat says, say fuck. There you go. Coconut says, yes it does. I forget what you're saying. Geo says, what do you think of Manchester United? I'm indifferent. I don't care. Ancient says, because of the other water bottle's lonely. It's an inanimate object. Brad says, are you my mother? No. Gianni says, read my... I don't know what you're saying. Win says, I have a joke. Do you know about the guy who dipped his balls in glitter? Yeah, it was pretty nuts. Oh, that's funny. Nexi says, who do you want to win the World Cup? Spain. Coraline says, chicken sandwich. Alright. Ramon says, please start a cult and lead us. Eventually, but that's gonna be like decades from now. Nania says, fuck you, bitch. You don't answer to my fucking questions. Sorry. Avi says, might I most respectfully suggest that your next magnum opus be adorned with the unparalleled sophistication of tiki funk? I don't know what that is. It sounds stupid, though. Thank you, Scrumptious, for the plastic flower. Matthew says, do you have any other questions about me? Oh, sorry about my camera. That looks terrible. Why is my camera going crazy? There we go. I think it's working now. This isn't a question, but I suggest that you change your profile picture. Dead says hi. Hello, Dead. It's Vox says Don or Don Benitez. Don. Coraline says Ba. Okay. DM says, can I tickle your urethra? No. Fish says, what did the elephant say to the naked man? How do you eat with that thing? I don't get it. Levin says, your camera was gooning. Yeah, it did look like that. C says, tell or ask me anything. That works. Ghosted says, you're welcome. Thank you again, Ghosted, for that firework. Thank you. Jumping says, is this pre-recorded? Surprisingly, no. Yeah, it's not. Fishboy says, last night you left me loose and longing. No, got the wrong person. Juju says, my mom woke me up. Alright. Ezra says, do you watch child pornography? No. Seam says, can you read this in your nerd voice? I failed. Ashlyn says, is your first name Don or Donald? No comment. Ryan says, they always talk about the Straits of Hormuz, but what about the gays of Hormuz? No comment. Dennis says, pencil, describe the vibe that I have right now. Pretty chill. I'm liking this new music that I have in the stream. Finn says, rate my profile picture. I dislike it. 0. Tad says, do you remember me? No. Amy says, who do you think is going to win the World Cup? Spain. Actually, Argentina. Ancient says, don't call her an inanimate object. An inanimate object. That's what the water bottle is. Rox says, hi. Hello, Rox. Sana says, Buddy needs to crouch to read these longest comments. Yeah, I do. Thank you, 00A plays for the soccer trophy. Thank you. AD plays. Jet says, you're gay. No, I'm not. GMS says, do you remember me? No. King says, hi. Hello, King. Geo says, already read that. Marcelo says, you have a job. I don't talk about my job. Nanio says, sorry for cussing earlier, and I will sub because of that. Okay, sounds good. Tian says, ball ride. Alright. Leland says, do you need water? Yeah, remind me in 5 minutes. Gaby says, do you want some more statistics? Sure. Fish says, what do you call 2 men hanging on a window? I don't get it. I'm not going to read the rest. Rock says, good to see you streaming again. Hope everything is going well in your life. Thank you. Chick says, remember me? No. Eating says, what color is it? No comment. Party says, you look like someone who eats dinner. Yeah, I do. The P says, if you could change anything in your life, what would it be? I would want a perfect, healthy body. C says, I don't know, emoji. D says, what sport did you play as a kid? I don't really play sports. Shane says, rate my profile picture. It's cutesy. Alex says, fun fact, in PE class, I twisted my sack and I had to get my nut removed. Okay. Thuy says, hi Don, I just woke up. Hello Thuy. Fish, already read that. Levin says, don't blur that in the posted live or act like you don't remember it. I'm not going to promise anything. Alex says, why did you make the stream shorter now? Because vibe. Parrot says, hi. Hello, Parrot. Random says, hi. Hello, Random. Ray says, rumor has it that Don eats corn the long way. No, I don't. Thank you, Thuy, for the moldy sundae. The sundae with mold on it, thank you. Juppy says chicken. Alright. Jetty says rate my profile picture. Well, that's a funny dog. Matthew says you eat dick. No, I don't. Heisen says get an actual job. This is depressing. I don't talk about my job. Ramon says when is the gaming stream going to be made public again? Well, the gaming stream sucks. It's probably the worst stream I've ever done, so I don't want it to make it public. Leland says time for water. Remind me in another 5 minutes. NX says hi. Hello, NX. Skeleton says yo. Hello, Skeleton. Axo says, do you remember when you got super chatted $500? Yeah, that was the flippin' gambler. Thank you, Goofy Gang, for the 20 sparkles. Yao says rate my profile picture. Oh, that's a guy in a hockey outfit. That's interesting. Mara says, if you're reading this, you're cerebelly sophisticated. No, I'm not. Silent says, good morning, Don. Hello, Silent. Z says, do you live in a house or apartment? I keep that private. 4 says, get a job. I don't talk about my job. Elijah says, Kamehameha. Alright. Yusuf says, if you had $1 million to give away to any charity, which one and why? I'd want to give it to people that are really in need. Like it's very serious. Maybe people where they're starving in other countries. Not people in the first world. Jetty says, can you touch me? No. Coraline says, Green Day or Tokyo Hotel? I haven't heard of hotel. Shane says, do you have an exact time or day where you stream? No. Ethan says, Spain or Argentina? I prefer Spain. Sana says, camera is gooning a little bit and a little bit blurry. Yeah, I don't know why it's like that. It sucks. Thank you, 00AD Plays, for the finger heart thing. The Grim says, smile or else. I don't care. You're not the real Grim Reaper. TN says, your hair is tough. Thank you. Ancient says, everyone say cheese. No. Levin says, should I change my profile picture again to something even worse? Well, your profile picture is already bad. I mean, I prefer if it wasn't worse. VX says, smile or you're gay. Your comment doesn't have that power. Kelly says, nice live. Thank you. I appreciate it. Epic says, what's good, broski? Hello, Epic. C says, I've run out of things to say. Alright. Fight says, what is your favorite game? Minecraft. Thank you, Jinx, for the 6-7 abomination. Wacky says, how's your day? Good. BB says, am I cool? No. Ale says, are you a gooner for Charlie Kirk? I am not. And what a cool profile picture. It's me, but AI-fied. Thankfully not Kirkified. I don't like that. Bounty says sushi or pizza. Pizza. Thank you, C, for the preschool stars. And thank you again, 80 Plays, for the finger heart. DM says, do you possess a well-developed booty? No comment. Chair says, yo, love the live. Thank you. Gaby says, did you know that 81% of the sauce that lays brick on Sunday will freeze when it reaches 572 degrees? No. 572? What? Jetty says, how do you like your meat? I don't know. I get fast food. I don't. Thank you, Lee, for the preschool stars. Living says, how old are you? I'm 18 plus. Ancient says, everyone like. Or don't. Living says, how old are you? Already read that. DM says, can we please make out? No. No. Jax says, are you racist? I am not racist. NC says, are you real? Yes. Remote says, are you crying? No. Thank you, Jax, for the 5 preschool stars. Pixelated says, you said VR isn't in its prime or it's not in its time, yet when you answered my question, what is the one thing you think it's holding it back? The technology's not there yet. I don't know. I'm not sure what it's missing, but I think it's the future. Like Ready Player One, but it's just not there yet. Friend says, do you stream on Twitch? No, I don't. N says, pronounce my name right. I don't care to do that. CN says, I'm back, remember me? No, I do not. Not to say the N-word. I don't want to. 34 says, do you love Jesus? No. C says, how should I cure my boredom? By going outside. Joe says, water time. Okay. 1 second, please, as I drink some water. YT says, you are my favorite YouTuber. Thank you. System says, it's 11 in my country. Okay. And thank you again to I Love God for the flow state. BD says, what do you mean by rating streamer? It means we're gonna go surprise a small streamer and make their day. Fishboy says, what do you call a Spanish man in hospital? Manuel. I don't get that. Ancient says, everyone. Okay. James says, CFA sauce is my favorite sauce. Chick-fil-A sauce? Yeah, it's good. 2L says, wish me luck on my job interview today. Good luck, 2L. Nep says, MAGA son or IDF soldier daughter. No comment. UG says, are you an atheist? I'm agnostic. Coop says, Manuel. What a dummy. Oh, I get it now. I am a dummy. Dub says, is it a bush or a fluffy dog? No comment. Robert says, big dominator. Bondon. With rearrange your girl's guts. Okay. NC says, I said pronounce my name right. I don't care to do that. 2L says, Jesus loves you. Thank you. Sneakers says, POV your room. No, it's not. GD says hi. Hello, GD. N says, you seem more sane with every stream. Thank you. Super says hi. Hello, Super. Easton says hi. How's it going, Easton? Bounty says pizza or spaghetti. Pizza. Jetty says, wait, can you raid me? Are you streaming? Fishboy says, why did the bike fall over? It was too tired. Oh, that's funny. Sneakers says, at least I got included. Alright. Rita says, are you gay? I'm not gay. 7 says, Jesus is king. Okay. Star says, are you okay? I am. Super says, yo, I think you're a good streamer. Thank you. Pink says, nice humpback. Thank you. BD says, thanks for answering. You're welcome. Pross says, rate my profile picture. Terrible. Friend says, do you have an OG like someone who's been in your stream since day one? Not since day one, but certain people have been here for a few months. Thank you, Claire, for the thumbs up. Ancient says every. Why are you saying that? Shane says, on what are you recording? I'm using my computer, but my iPhone is connected to my computer though. Chair says nice background. Thank you. AL says, do you goon to something? I don't know what that is. Levin says, Don, do you want me to send you where I got that other picture of the cracking people? I don't want to see porn. Easy says, free Palestine. No comment. Sana says, do you support Ukraine or Russia? No comment. Blood Moon says, what's your favorite food? The cheeseburger. Star says, rate my profile picture. Bad. Lewis says, ho. Okay. Alex says, damn is NPC comment, homosexual pornography. Okay. Bloxfruit says, do you gang bang? No comment. RX says, who are we rating today, Daddy Don? I don't know who's going to be live in an hour. Lil J says, biggest admiration. What? Omar says, do you love Palestine? No comment. Sneakers says, do you know what flag my profile picture is? It looks like a modified Albanian flag. Cool Potato says, rate my profile picture. Lame. Maverick says, do you know or play Quake? Yeah, it's like one of the first-person shooters. James says, guys, stop. If he remembers you, he is parasocial. He doesn't even really know we are, to be honest. Okay. Speed says, why is your chat so sus? Because I don't have moderators. Silence says, I'm new. What do we do in here? Say random stuff. It's Vox says, Don or parasocial Dominitas? I prefer Don. Mooney says, remember me? I do not Trey says rate my profile picture. 1. Mommy says what's the video in the background? It's in the description. Easy says can you raid me? Tell me what a raid is. Anastasia says may I be mod? Absolutely not. Dewey says you just like my profile picture as a grown in you. It's pretty boring, but it's an above average profile picture. All says why'd you decide to add music this time? There's always been music for the past few months. Ario says play Hotline Miami. No. Alex says Sijan pecs or homosexual pornography. No comment. Vex says big penis. Alright. UG says PP dick. Same thing. Alright. Omar says can you rate my profile picture? 2. OB says please smile. I don't want to though. Star says you're a good streamer despite people hate and say about you. Thank you. And thank you Elv Edits for the laughing disco abomination. Easton says Jesus loves you. Thank you. Jason says Palestine can eat my butt. No comment. Easy says can you rate me? I respond to what I said earlier. Lint says is Liam a good name? No. Me name says inane comment. What? I don't know what inane means. I forget. Thank you AD for the 80 plays for the 6-7 abomination. I appreciate all your gifts. And Elv Edits for the second laughing disco. Viam says long time no see Don. How are you? I'm good, but I'm missing the Pikachu. Alex says damn isn't. Okay. Omni says ball right. Sack. Okay. Junior says does it give you validation having all these people giving you attention? I mean, maybe a tiny bit, but it's only text, so it's not the biggest deal. Thank you, not Wendy's, for the laughing disco abomination. Raphael says MAGA son or IDF soldier's daughter. No comment. Thank you, Jay Salcido, for the Spain. And most pick for the stupid little turtle drinking water. Thank you. OB says I think when he said raid, he meant raid. I don't think so. Thank you, Moss, for the flow state. Grim says rate my profile picture, please. It's too... I don't know what's happening. Intergalactic says do you like Elden Ring? I haven't played it. ZC says Israel sucks my... No comment. UG says what keyboard is that? It's a K95 Corsair keyboard. Yeah says penis. Okay. Micah says would you have a doctor degree in anything? I don't talk about my degree, sorry. Thank you Miles for the Argentina, and thank you again to Most Pick for the stay hydrated. Gaby says who would be your day ones? Well, you're pretty a long time viewer, kind of. The first captain is definitely one. Ancient says even. I don't know what you're saying. Block says I think when he said raid he meant rape. I don't think so. Easy says raid my stream. Are you streaming? Uzma says L chat. Okay. Meta says you like soccer? No. Sock super chats. Short and early live today, huh? Exactly. Thank you King for this bane, but I plan to make my future streams longer. Thank you Socks. I appreciate it. Care says have you ever broken character? I don't know what you mean. Laughing? I've laughed a lot. Sigma says rate my profile picture. 2. Bounty says my YouTube crashed. Alright. Yoon says do you love me? I do not. Edog says do you have a job? I don't talk about my job. TS says have you heard of the philosopher Boff? I haven't. Thank you King Mr. Taco for the stupid turtle drinking water. In honor of that turtle, I'm gonna drink water as well. Oh wow, there's also a stupid waddling dog. Thank you DaFinky for the stupid corgi thing. 1 second please. Thank you DaFinky and King Mr. Taco. Bennett says you know 21 Pilots? Yeah. Ashton says it's me. Hello. Ancient says E. Alright. Food says, well, super chats. I'm back. Also, Verity is still crackable. Isn't Verity that smiley face? I don't know how that's crackable, but okay. Arnold says hi. Hello, Arnold. Wrong says, one time we rated someone and they referred to you as the guy with a Spanish last name. Okay, I don't mind. Ginger says, have your balls fell out your butt yet? No. Well, like, have they dropped? Yeah, if that's what you're saying. Gen says, do you believe in Jesus? I do not. 5 says, you smell. I do not. I wear deodorant and cologne. Maverick says, what's your favorite Valve game? Half-Life 1. The Cone says, who are we rating today? I don't know yet. Skibbity says, do you remember me? No. Silly says, what do you think of my profile picture? Oh, that's a nice picture of Michael Jackson. Thank you, Jamera, for the sunshine thing. Thank you. Easy says yes. Well, looking at your profile picture, your channel looks terrible, so I don't care to rate you. Pacific says, emoji. Okay. Cube says, do you remember me? No, I don't. Pacific says, H. Alright. Uzma says, you like Roblox? No. Terrible game. Hi says, are you depressed? No. Junior says, what's it gonna take for you to get a haircut? $5,000. 1 second, please. I'm very thirsty. Alright. Gen says, why don't you believe him? He's real. Because the Holy Spirit hasn't contacted me yet. Ronan super chats, what is your favorite country to visit and profile picture? My favorite country to visit. Well, I haven't traveled that much. I haven't been out of the country. But I mean, Machu Picchu is interesting. Yeah. And your profile picture, it's kind of bland. I wish it was closer to the, like, it's too zoomed out. I want to see the plane, but it's too zoomed out. Nosy says, hi, can I have $1,000? No. Cody says, sup, hello, Cody. Levin says, will you ban me if I change my profile picture to pornography? Maybe. I'm not sure yet. Rosie says, why are people being so fucking inappropriate? I don't know. Jay says, what do you when you're not streaming? I doom scroll. Jay says, you are so rude. Alright. Liz says, hello, Don. How has Thursday been treating you? I can't stay, but gotta support, so hope you have a wonderful stream. Today's been good. Thank you, Liz, for the support. See ya. And this is embarrassing, but I am just now noticing your profile picture. It says, I choose violence. That's intense. C says, do you have a favorite cheeseburger? I like Big Macs. Phantom says, Digger. Digger. Okay. The song says, damn, W Chatter. Alright. Okay. MG says, I low-key just loop it around both my balls. Okay, that's weird. Patrick says, hi, how are you? I'm good. Yuzma says, yo are so rude. Okay. Thank you, Quarks, for the Chuck E. Cheese coin, and Sty Guy for the 2 Argentinas. 5 says, you autistic? No. It's Finn says, this is a fun streaming idea. Thank you. Shane says, what does moderators mean? Figure it out. Thank you, Quacks, for the 7 Chuck E. Cheese coins. Roblox says, I love your streams. Don't listen to the haters. Thank you. Maverick says, if you like Half-Life 1, do you play Half-Life 1 mods? If no, did you play the Half-Life 1 expansion? No. I just beat Half-Life 1 a month ago. I've yet to play the expansions or any of that. Thank you, Sty Guy, for the Chuck E. Cheese coin. Eke says, hey man, I asked you if I should quit my job. You said yes. I feel so much better. Thank you. I said that, really? Okay, well, I'm glad that helped you. I hope I hope you stay happy. Angel says, what's your favorite holiday? Thanksgiving. Bear says, racial slur. Alright. Perf says, can you fart into the microphone? No, no. Robert says, you should shave your head into a mullet. No, I shouldn't. Me name says, profile picture rating, please. It's a cool profile picture. It's an interesting effect. I don't know what filter's going on. Yeah, I mean, is it maybe it looks like a cartoon with a profile picture. It's interesting, and the hat is cool. Sammy says, how is your day going? It's been pretty good. Luan says, hi. Hello, Luan. Levin says, for 10 consecutive 500 donos, would you recreate I Show Me? No, I would not. That would be selling my soul. Thank you, Hudson, for the stupid little turtle drinking water. Silly says, I'm abstracting. Alright. Levi says, just a friendly reminder that you are not too far gone from God's love and forgiveness. Thank you, but I don't believe in that. And thank you again to Hudson for the stupid turtle drinking water. I'll drink some water in honor of your gift. 1 second, please. Bell says, how are you doing? I'm doing fine. Real says, you like my new title? Your new name? No, I don't. Thank you, John, for the 6-7, and Jace for this Fortnite chest. This stupid little Fortnite chest. Thank you. Jace, thank you. Tony says hi. Hello, Tony. Demi says, why do you look like the berries and cream guy? I don't know who that guy is. Me name, super chats, £2. Thank you. And by the way, if I were to give your profile picture a number, I'd give it a 7. Mr. Beaming says, you play Fortnite? I occasionally do. Thank you, Socks, for the 44 kindergarten stars. Nut says, how do I stop stuttering? I don't know. See a speech therapist. Suv says, hello, mama. Hello, Suv. Wow says, I am iconic by mistake. Alright. Owen says, what's your favorite game other than Minecraft? Black Ops 2. Thank you, Socks, for the 86 preschool stars. Shane says, how long ago was the 500 dono? It was last stream. Wyatt says, rate my profile picture. Oh, is that Red Dead? That's kind of cool. Justin says, will you suck my dick for 10k? No. Thank you, Combo Life, for the laughing disco abomination. Claptrap says, hello, Vault Hunter. How's your day? Pretty good. Pretty good. Hello, Claptrap. Chaotic says, yo, why do you do this every day? Money. Nosy says, profile picture rating. Oh, that's cool, Gecko. Thank you, Socks, for the 150 kindergarten stars. Thanks a lot. Oreo says, when was your first live? In September. Jumpin says, rate my profile picture. Kind of boring. Eleanor says, what's your favorite block in Minecraft? I like oak logs. 1 second, please. Thank you, Socks, for the 200 kindergarten stars. I appreciate it. The SK says, my ex cheated on me. That's horrible. I'm sorry. Omni says, remember me? No, but your profile picture is interesting. B Savvy says, are you depressed in any way after the streaming? No. Me Name says, the profile picture is an IRL photo in Chiquitos that has been cartoon filtered in Photoshop. Okay. I don't know what Chiquitos is, but okay. Thank you, Socks, for the 250, 260 kindergarten stars. Liz says, I chose the photo because it was a chick, thus Liz the chick. Oh, and pretty funny. Yeah, that's cool. Yaz says, I hate Roblox, Brawl Stars better. They both suck. Thank you, Socks, for the 300 kindergarten stars. I've been a good boy. Fung says hi. Hello, Fung. Omni says, rate my profile picture. I give it a 5. Ahmed says, remember me? I do not. Sub says, you play Fortnite? 1 second, please. I occasionally do. John says, how many donuts can you fit on your dick? No comment. Thank you, Liam, for the preschool star. Omni says, rate my profile picture. I already did that. Jeffrey says, you're hot. Thank you. I appreciate it. Snowflake says, what's your favorite game? Minecraft. Jace says, shit in my mouth. I don't want to. Sorry. 1 second, please. 1 second, please. Sean says, will you ever do Minecraft streams? Probably, actually. I want to make my own server. Noob says, my dad doesn't love me. Oh, I'm sorry. Yazma says, rate my profile picture. It's a cricket player. 1. Muffin says, rate my profile picture. 1 second, please. 1 second, please. 1 second, please. Sorry, I was doing something. It looks terrible. It's Vox says, Dawn or Dawn? They're both good. Cube says, do you play PvP in Minecraft? If not, then do you play survival? I play survival, yeah. I also play Hypixel. Matt says hi, hello Matt. Jack says hi again, bro, hello. Jack Marston. Socks Fun World, Super Chats. My phone is overheating. You're going in the freezer for a few minutes. Why is it overheating? That's bizarre. Are you like in a desert? I don't know why it's overheating. 1 second please, I'm doing something. It's Vox says Don, or I already answered that, man. Tyler says remember me. No, I do not. 1 second please. My chat is glitching a little bit. I need to do something. Okay, there we go. The Alpha says rate my profile picture. 1. Smooth says please remember me, Don. I will not do that. D1 says rate my profile picture. 1. Ahmed says, are you a World Cup player? I am not a World Cup player. El Perro says drink agua. Remind me in 10 minutes. Toon says it's fucking 10 a.m. Why are you live so early? My weird schedule. Shane says, what the flippa Scooby-Doo? Alright. Your phone is overheating. I don't believe that. I think you're just making things up. John says, itch, my balls are sweaty. Please, they hurt. I hope you find a solution. 1 Hour Creek, Super Chats, remember me? Yeah. You asked me to rate your profile picture, and I remember that one time you forced me to end the stream and rate a streamer. Frankie says Pepsi or Coke? Coke. Thank you, Techno, for the 340 sparkles. I don't know how I did not notice that. That's crazy. Dylan says fuck. Okay. Stay says K-pop sucks. Yeah, I agree. Sterny says I'm leaving for Florida at 6 p.m. CTR. Are you going to Disney World? Thank you again, Techno. You must have been annoyed with me by not noticing that. Ghost Balls says, can you break my profile picture? I don't even know what's happening. Thank you, Eki, for this stupid little eagle thing. Thank you, Eki. Cypress says, what is your favorite country? I like the United States. Mon says, what is your tip color? No comment. Saad says, rate my name. Saad is a interesting name. I haven't heard that before. Shaquille says, bro is a pussy. No, I have a penis. Thank you, AJ, for the preschool stars. Matthew says, how do you feel about the situation with PlayStation getting rid of discs? Everyone hates it, but I don't care. Actually, I find it funny how everyone is irritated. Dylan says shit. Okay. John says, can you lick my butthole? I ran out of toilet paper. No, I'm not into consuming feces. Obliv says, please stop reading inappropriate comments. I'm with my mom. I can't do that. Thank you again to Ike for the eagle, and thank you Bella's Diary for the 6-7 abomination. Block says, finally, you smile when someone donates fucking 300 stars. Yeah, speaking of that, thank you AJ for the 50 stars. Lilia says, rate my profile picture, please. Oh, that's a weird, cute dog. Block, I already read that. Dark says, L ads. What ads? I don't have ads. Rio says, do you use any behavior packs in Minecraft? No. Music says, rate my profile picture, it's beautiful. No, it's a little too intimate. Rusky says, why are your teeth so yellow? Because of not taking care of my teeth. Jessica says, play Eto. I don't know what that is. Shane says, if I donate 500 right now, can I decide who you raid? Well, the problem is that some streamers, they have their settings where I can't raid them. So I couldn't be able to promise that. Jenna says, what's your favorite game? Minecraft. Thank you, AJ, for the 170 preschool stars. Goofy says, hi, I'm a goofy kitsune. Wanna be friends? No, I don't, sorry. Thank you, Muzabri, for the Uncle Alert. Sebastian says, I'm fucking my dog. That's disgusting. Salmon says, can you rate my pussy? No. Matton says, rate my profile picture. I'll do that. I definitely not the last thing, but I'll do that. That's a cute cat. I give it a 5. Evault says, Peter Piper picked a pepper. Alright. Thank you, AJ, for the 246, 250 kindergarten stars. Delfino says, do you know Bhutan worships cock? I did not. Bella says, do you enjoy reading inappropriate comments? I'm indifferent. Thank you again to Combo Life for the Laughing Disco. Bonnie says Minecraft or Fortnite. Minecraft. Sierra says fucking shit. Alright. Those says lick my butthole. I don't have an interest in that. The one says tickle my pickle for a nickel. I don't have an interest in that either. CN says hi, I'm back again. Remember me now? No, I don't. Thank you, AJ, for the 340 preschool stars. Thank you. 300. And Wyeth for the 70. RX says rate the new profile picture, daddy. I look crazy. X says rate my profile picture. Terrible. Dylan says ass. Okay. Pro says what's your end goal for your YouTube channel? To make lots of money. Thank you, AJ, for the 380 preschool stars. The cat says rate my profile picture. Oh, it's cute, kind of silly though. Sock super chats. How was it in the freezer, Don? It's overheating when I'm just in my garage. It's only 87 in my garage, but it's 104 outside. I don't know how your phone was. I don't have tabs on your phone, but that's crazy though that it was overheating. 87 degrees in your garage. Okay. Lol says rate my profile picture. Oh, that's kind of corny but cute at the same time. Rem says gay emoji. Alright. Robert says please perform extreme cock and ball torture on me. I'm not interested. Thank you, AJ, for the 500 preschool stars. Thank you. 500 preschool stars. Thank you, AJ. Greek says rate my profile picture pic. It's Greek mythology. I don't like it. Black says, hey mate, hope you're having a good day. Thank you. I am. Thank you, C, for the 95 100s. Arvid says, have you watched The Amazing Digital Circus? Hell no. Dino says, duh. Okay. Remy says, are you high? No, I'm not. Bumper says, rate my pro. Rate your what? Mr. Soccer says, should I end it all? No, you should not. Thank you again to, most epic movies for the flow state. Ghost says, can you rate your profile picture? I give mine a 5. Bella says, what ethnicity are you? I'm Hispanic. Allison says, my niece is misbehaving. What shall I do? You should contact their parents. I am so bored says, how is my profile picture? Boring. Uncle Stan super chats $1 American. Thank you. And what is that profile picture? That also kind of looks like mythology. Dominic says, do you do this all day? No. Mariah says, hi. Hello, Mariah. Callum says, what does ethic mean? To be honest, I don't know, but my ancestry is based in Mexico. Darker says, the Twitch streamer Benny on 1 got me banned for 6 months. Sorry. Arthur says, daddy, I'm back. Hello, Arthur. NW says, love you, cute. Thank you. Zaruvi says, why are you frowning so much? Why am I making faces like this? I don't know, it just comes naturally. I don't know why exactly. Tushar says, did you gain weight? No. Vin says, I'm in school bus right now. In your live, brother. You should not be watching this if you're in a school bus. Thank you, Nathan, for the Chuck E. Cheese coin. That one says, I want to touch you. Not happening. SK says, rate my profile picture. 1. Shane says, are you only doing this for the money? Not only. That's probably the biggest factor, but Ramon says, are you going to watch the World Cup final on Sunday? No. Thank you, GD, for the plastic flower. Leo says, what is your dream thing? What? Thank you, GD, for the third plastic flower. Turtle says, is there a bot that picks the messages? No. Cypress says, rate my profile picture pic. It's kind of boring. Viper says, can you rate my profile picture? Even more boring. Chasso says, can I eat a sandwich? Yeah, you can. Martin says, did the invention of scrolling damage the minds of young people? Obviously. Kin says, what's your tip color? No comment. Vex says, this is your time to drink some water. Remind me in 5 minutes. Delph says, Biggie, can't you see Diddy is looking pretty rapey? No comment. Ira says, rate my profile picture. 0.5. ZS says, is it big pink or small one? No comment. And thank you, GD guy, for the 100s, 3100s. Lil Big says, hey Don, how you been? I've been good. And an interesting new colorful profile picture. Idori says, rate my profile picture. No. Blue says, rate my... boring. Sierra says, do you play Brawl Stars? Hell no. Thank you, GD, for the 60 100s. Rio says, what do you play Minecraft on? Java. Random says, do Spurs suck to you after losing? I don't care about sports. Martin says, if you were to shape how everything goes in this world, what would you change? I would make the world into the TV show Pluribus. Jason says, rate my profile picture. No. It's just your face. I don't want to rate your face. That's weird. 2 a.m. says, what is it? Unstoppable says, what's your favorite color? Gray. Dan says, you wear racial slurs? I don't know what you're saying. Leo says, are you related to Toby Fox? No. Meat Potato says, it's been a long time. It's Meat Potato. Hello, Potato. Evault says, Peter Piper picked a pepper. Alright. Jet says, are you a stripper? I am not a stripper. 1 second, please. 1 second, please. 1 second, please. Alright. Bellis says, what's your favorite food? The cheeseburger. That song says bros over hoes. Sorry, I'm just distracted by your profile picture. No. Sigma says, rate my profile picture boring. Silly says, rate my... Dude, I'm getting bored of this writing stuff. It's too much. Rusky says, pussy farts smell so good. Okay. Chester says, you like Nirvana? Yeah. Silent says, do you think Rick on Pawn Stars rips people off? Yes. Lil Soup says, I want to see if you can guess what anime my profile picture is from. I don't watch anime. Yeah, I don't know. My guess is JJK. I haven't watched a atom of JJK, but that's my guess. RM says, I like Minecraft as well. Okay. Daff says, racial slur or Jedi Master Ray. Oh, like sexual assault? I don't believe in sexual assault. Darker says, what is the meaning of life? To survive and reproduce. Not rape, not sexual assault. Darker said, what is... I already read that. Mister says, do you sleep? I do sleep. Salmon says, I'm wearing ladies' underwear. Okay. Dr. Pepper says, who do you want to win the World Cup? Spain. MP says, hi Don, you like lasagna? No, I don't. Easy says, I'm gay. Okay, that's cool. Tushar says, are your hair shoulder length? I think so. Shane says, I asked to rate my profile picture, but you never gave me an actual number. 4. April says, what's up, Don? Hello, April. Dominic says, I don't really like what you do, but these people are crazy. Okay. Monarch says, it's me and Mario. You low-key fine shit. Thank you. Glow says, do you have a VR? No, I don't. Zay says, you look like Danny Rojas. Okay. Maid says, are you ready for the stream to be over? No. Thank you, Rusky, for the press F, and thank you again to Bella's Diary for the 6-7 gift. It's me says what? What? Oh. Someone said your name. Lil Big says, nah, wrong. Sorry, it's Sailor Moon. Oh, that anime with the blonde girl? Okay. Alright. Micah says, please change BG to gay porn. No, that'll get me banned. Thank you, cool dude, for the preschool star. Ryan says, are you gay? No. And thank you, GD guy, for the press F. Delfino says, what if Vader chopped off like cock instead? I don't know, man. Muffin says, are you religious? No. Lil Big says, you mean Usagi? Just... isn't Sailor Moon with the one with the blonde girl? Vax says, this is your time to drink some water. Okay. 1 second, please, as I drink some water. 1 second. Do you guys like this music? MH says, you're very nice and honest. Thank you. Monarch says, Donnie, Sunny Boy, please jerk off. No. Seam says, you should watch Death Note. No, I shouldn't. Wacky says, do you like animated shows? No, I'm not a child. Jay says, what's the biggest donation you ever got? 500 American dollars. Kat says, I do Craft Magazine. Alright. Toby says, Don, how is your insanity? I'm sane. C says, I miss piano music. Oh, you do? I think you're just saying that, just to say that. I'm says, are you me okay? I don't know what you're saying. Meh says, why does my comment never get picked? I don't know, I'm sorry. Rory says, do you like Victor P? I don't know who that is. Bloodthirsty says, shit, piss, fucking cocksucker. No comment. Thomas says, how do you feel about Yeeps or Rec Room? Rec Room looks like a child's game. Salmon says, I just watched a video of 2 girls being gay. Okay. Seam says, I mean it. The piano music was relaxing. Okay, maybe it'll make a return. Delfino says, show us your mouse pad. It's right here. It's this black pad. Syria says, have you played Rec Room before? Unfortunately. Leon says, remember me? No, I don't. Stevie says, how are you doing today? I'm doing fine. Max says, who do you think is going to win the World Cup Finals? Argentina. Random says, drink water. I just did that a while, like 5 minutes ago. Shane says, are you comfortable with sharing how much you get per stream? Well, I'll tell you that I get like $30 per hour streaming. Thank you, Ike, for the Argentina, and thank you for that one gift you sent a while back. Meh says neighbor. Okay. Damien says, I'm gonna kill myself. Please don't do that. Johnny says, OMG, you popped up my feed again. Hello, Johnny. Welcome back. Pawn says, where do you not live? South America. Top says, this is slop. It is. The favorite says, finish your water or else. Remind me in 5 minutes. YC says, I liked your streams. Thank you. Monarch says, Stevie, how far can you squirt? No comment. Van says, have you read the Bible? Yeah. I've read some of it. Thank you, I Am Sky, for the feces. My Bad says, have you played any indie games? Like I played the Steam indie game Absolute Insanity. Martin says, if you are conscious of your own consciousness, would you fall into a maze of endless consciousness forever? I mean, I think that's already a thing. I think that happens to people all the time. Super says, you remember me? Yes. BP says, Messi or Ronaldo? Messi. It's Vox says, Don or Donnie? Don. Don. Silent says, what is your favorite Eyes Wide Shut movie? What? That doesn't make any sense. Archangel says, I live your stream format and editing. It's tough. Thank you. Cage says, circumcision is child abuse. Yes or no? Why? Don't base your response based on your dick status. Well, I once heard that circumcision was good because it helps against smegma, so I think it's good. One Shot says, hello. Hello, One Shot. Brack says, what's your favorite hobby outside of streaming? I like video editing. Thank you, King, for the Spain. Asher says, hi, chat. This isn't Minecraft. Iron says, why do you do this, money? C says, I wasted all my gifts, Jules, on you because you're my favorite streamer ever. Thank you. Fly says, can you stream any faster? That doesn't make any sense. Bloodthirsty says, farting cat emoji. Alright. Meh says, are you white? I'm Hispanic. Pale says, Fortnite balls all in your face. Okay. Johnny says, take a sip of water for us. Okay. I hope you're not asking that because you're perverted, but I will do that. 1 second, please. Thank you, Wrong, for the preschool stars. Thank you. And Sky. Thank you, Paige, for the Argentinas, and Martha for the 6-7 abomination. Kat says, I am making Maratha. What is that? Thank you, Ramon, for the makeup brush, and Kirkby for the Spain. Jude says, what camera to use? I use my iPhone camera. Thank you, Atla, for the stupid clapping seal thing. Max says, when are you going to finish the streaming? You can look right here. Yoshi says, MSL movie The Secret Door. Okay. Jonathan says, is my Coco big? I don't know what that is. Gibbon says, You have to be the most negative person I've ever seen. Okay. Thank you, King, for the Spain. Matteo says MSL movie The Secret Door 2. Okay. Sonic says, have you played VR before? Yes. Brack says, do you ever get bored doing these streams? Yes. Vexer says, hey, read this. There you go. Thank you again, Atla, for the clapping seal. Saf says, do you like the movie Obsession? I haven't seen it. System says, don't throw bottles, Don Benitez. I'm not going to listen to you. Johnny says, blink. There you go. Lil says, DW, I accidentally pressed sent too early. That message didn't make sense. Blonde girl is Yusugi, Princess Serenity, Sailor Moon. The blonde girl. Description makes me laugh. Oh. Her name is Usagi. Okay. Sock Super Chats. Are you ever going to give up on streaming? Of course. I mean, do you expect me to be streaming when I'm 80 years old? Thank you, Martha, for the preschool star, and Songston Cube for the Spain. Randomness says, why do you look high? I don't know, dude. Max says, when is the next stream going to be? Probably tomorrow. Catherine says, happy emoji. Okay. Hello, Catherine. Jonathan says, have you watched Bloodhounds? No, I haven't. RM says, it's nighttime where I am. Should I sleep? Yes. Sam says, hi. Hello, Sam. Vin says, the world will be different when you are 80. That's true. Yeah. Thank you, Sky, for the press F. I don't think I'll be streaming, though. Kanye says, why do you boof? I don't boof. Danny says, is this your job? I don't talk about my job. Claytonic says, no more huzz in the chat. Alright. Jodia says, thoughts on euthanasia for depression? I think it's a bad thing. Thank you, Paige, for the PCs. Kristen says, Jesus loves you. Thank you. Marley says, why do you do this? Money. Dylan says, what platform do you rate streamers on? YouTube, obviously. Toby says, middle finger, please. Give me money. Thank you, Paige, for the red card. Newbie says, sweet or savory? Sweet. School says, what's your favorite movie? Eyes Wide Shut. Saf says, how many siblings do you have? I'm not gonna say. Ben says, thoughts on youth in Asia? Oh, like, put to death. That's a weird way to spell it. The Nuke says, just no. No what? Thank you, I'm Zagoat, for the France. Sonic says, you like VR? It's interesting. I haven't played it too much, though. Eddie says, you like Minions? They're pretty corny, but they're cute. Toby says, NPC Live? That's me. Sinar says, do you have a e-bike? No, I don't. Thank you, Menace, for the Chuck E. Cheese coin. And thank you again, Goat, for the France. Krish Twisted says, one sock cutter. He cut socks. Two sock cutters. They cut socks. Okay. Alright, I get it. Trust says, show us your cologne. It's right here. This is my cologne. It's by Adidas. Hassan says, is this like Q&A in stream? Yes. Johnny says, question mark, why are you saying that? Not says Spain or Argentina. I want Spain to win. RM says, I hear you are moving to Somalia soon. That's not real. C says, why do you take off the labels on your water bottles? Because they look cooler that way. Liquor Butt Super Chats. I love my air fryer so much. I came in it, turned it on, saw it sizzle, and pop all over the glass. Then, the inside of it smelled like bleach. Okay, that's tasty emoji. I don't know why that's tasty. That seems disgusting. You seem insane. Lil says, rate these from the most hated to least hated. Huz, fine shit, and thought. I 1, 2, 3. This is my favorite, least favorite. Brookie says hello. Hello, Brookie. Yuri says, I'm going to Ohio tomorrow. Sounds good. Narwhal says narwhals. Narwhal swimming in the ocean. Okay. Brookie says hello. Hello again. You put your semen in the air fryer, and that's pretty weird. One Elite says, have you ever played Mega Chameleon? No, I haven't. It looks too difficult. Kerr says, what is the best Shrek movie? The first one. Overseer says, are you gay? No. Ryan says, how long do you do this a day? Like 3 hours. Cow says, do you know Epstein? I've heard of him. Natalie says, what do I do if I think my significant other is seeing someone else? Confront them. MP says, nothing's too difficult, Don. Yeah, lots of stuff is too difficult. Tariq says, bro, your hair. What about it? Thank you, Deep, for the Chuck E. Cheese coin. The Unique says, it's my birthday. I'm not gonna say it. Jonathan says, Dylan is gay, don't listen to him. No comment. Toka says hi. Hello, Toka. Block says, be horny or be corny. No comment. John says, you need Xanax. No, I don't. Johnny says, do you like my profile picture? It's okay. Default profile pictures are okay. Bim says, do you rage streamers in a bad or good way? I try to do it in a good way. Astra says, boobs or ass, no preference. The Nuke says, hypertension or hypothermia. I don't know what hypertension is. Gibbon says, bro is keeping his life a secret. Yeah. Thank you, Anakin YT, for the park the bus. I appreciate it. Park the bus. Thank you. Claytonic says, well, drive a funky. Yeah, I don't know what you're saying. Dot says, how old are you? I'm 18 plus. Toka says, don't listen to the mean people. Thank you. Al says, life's too short to not goon your mouth. No comment. San says, who's your favorite YouTuber? Sal C1. Gibbon says, why is everyone forcing religions on you? Because they want to save me from hell. Thank you, one elite fan, for the Uncle alert. Brookie says, I broke my collarbone. Okay. Yuri says, do you like my profile picture? No, I dislike it, in fact. Tariq says, bro, your hair is ugly. Okay. Andrad Super Chats, Mr. Benitez, any advice you have for the new gen? W for you, thank you. And thank you, School Picks, for the Moldy Sunday. My advice is to, maybe get a dumb phone. People spend way too much time on their iPhone, of course, their smartphone, so I've heard about dumb phones where they don't have any apps, all you do is text on it, so maybe that could be useful. Cameron says, I goon in my microwave. Oh, that's just as weird. Thank you, School Picks, for the high five thing. Cow says, we love Epstein. Alright. The Real says, I have a name. Yeah, me too. Johnny says, no, your hair is pretty, thanks. Bloodthirsty says, all you motherfuckers are gonna pay. You are the ones who were the ball lickers. No comment. Socks Fun World Super Chats. To make it easier to read every single chat, my advice would be, make it like a system, like next, up, and next step, kind of like once you send your chat. Your chat is in line, if you know what I mean. I don't know what you're saying. Thank you, Beastie Rick, for the flow state. I appreciate it, Beastie Rick. What are you saying, Socks? What? I can understand your other super chats, but this is craziness. My advice would be, make it like a system, like next, up, and next step, kind of like, dude, what are you saying? If you want to, you can message me on Discord and elaborate. Jetty says, make a queue is what he means. What would be the purpose of that? Blast says, Don, will you raid? Yeah. I Love says, yes, bro. We're dying in Michigan, bro. Oh, I'm sorry. Shane says, will you ever make videos or shorts eventually? Ike says, off to a job interview. Wish me luck. Good luck, Ike. Good luck, person with a weird username, Ike. Thank you, the favorite child for the Argentina. I Love says, it's because the wildfires in Canada, bro. Oh, did not hear about that. It's crazy. Error says, hi, hello, Error. Spec says, blah, 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 racial slur. Okay. Lincoln says, do you believe in Jesus? I do not. By the way, Ike, I hope your real name isn't a weird name, like Ike, because I'm pretty sure people with weird names, exotic names, they have less chances of being hired. I'm pretty sure. YC says, how was your day? Pretty good. Tudio says, go to sleep. I am not tired. Void says, touch me. Not interested. Trident says, what car do you drive? I keep that private. Toka says, guys, let him do whatever, guys. Thank you, but I don't mind. Matteo says, I goon to your stream on my Motorola flip phone. Okay. I don't think that has YouTube. FM says, you like Roblox? No. Ronald says, my did cheese stank, please suck it up. No, I don't want to. Lil says, what is the weirdest thing you've done out of boredom? I don't know. Sorry. Jesus says, God is good. Okay. Zen says, do you like my profile picture? I've seen that picture too much. Cow Milker says, I gave Epstein my D. That's weird. By the way, Big Duels, I don't know. I just go on my phone, I scroll. I don't do anything weird. System says, I was done the second 1 hour video. I don't know what you're saying. Carter says, I gooned Haya. Alright. Trust says, Zen or Hypefire. I don't know what that is. B-Man says, VR or PC. PC. Thank you, Ryan, for the press F. The 2 press Fs. Thank you. Scar says, do you like my profile picture? I do not. 1 second, please. 1 second, please. Zen says, you like my profile picture? Dude, I already answered that. Socks says, 1 second, please. He super chats, he doesn't need to go to sleep. It's probably morning for him because I'm pretty sure he's off PST time. Yeah, I will tell you though that I am American, so my time is 1 second, please. It's daytime for me right now. Thank you for the super chat, Socks. B-Man says VR or PC. I'm gonna go with PC. I mean, isn't VR like connected to PC though? 1 second, please. I'm doing something. 1 second, please. 1 second, please. Why isn't this working? Oh my god. Okay. Poopy says, whatever I tell you to do, okay? No, that's stupid. Victoria says, what, you stink or do you... No, I use deodorant and cologne. Mohammed says hi. Hello, Mohammed. How's it going? 1 second, please. I'm doing something. My computer is glitching out. It's really annoying. 1 second, please. Thank you for your patience. James says water break. Not right now. Shane says my name is pronounced S-A-N-E. I'm gonna forget that, sorry. Tarek says big forehead. I do have a big forehead. 1 second, please. 1 second, please. Jetty says, can we raid me? No. The first captain says, 1 second, please. Oh my god, why is my computer so laggy? I'm gonna... Okay, there we go. Daff says, drink some fucking water, now. Hassan says, what is the biggest mistake you see newcomers in the field making? What field? Bruh, this is so annoying. Why is this not working? Miles says, are you femboy? No, I'm not. Eggman says, blah, blah, blah. I don't know what you're saying, dude. I don't speak that language. F6 says, whatever that is. Okay. Matteo says, 1 second, please. That's me. Cameron says, do you play the hat? Play what? Kerr says, you missed the first captain's comment. Oh. Type it again, the first captain. Theory says, there are no good streams. I agree. Sandish says, who is 7C1 bro? Like, what the fuck, never heard of your favorite video? I don't know who that is. Easy says, are you gay? I'm not gay. Bear says, can I have a shout out? No. Shoutouts are for dumb people. 1 second, please. Okay, there we go. Olivia says, rate my profile picture. Weird. Lil says, would you say these streams started from boredom? Yes. C says, will you lie this stream or nah? Probably not. Schlurp says, yo bro, how does the other guy in the basement get a PC? Nobody's gotten a PC by me. Zen says, do you play Call of Duty? No. Matteo says, 500 seconds please. I'm sorry about that. I'm never mind. Wire Olivia says weird. Okay. Chaos says Gaga. Alright. Trend says, when was your first stream, bitch? In September. EZ says, you like my profile picture? I give it a 1. Arjun says, are you a Christian? I am not a Christian. Kerr says, don't listen to the haters, Donnie. Thank you. And it looks like you're self-aware. Thank you, Jets Mix, for the 2 Chuck E. Cheese coins. Shaw says, how long have you been locked in a basement? I'm not locked in a basement. Trust says, Braun or Jordan? LeBron. Night Slayer says, does anyone ever text you during the stream on your phone? Yes. But I have an iPad and some other ways to see the text. Hello says, how's it going? It's going fine. Elder says, what's your favorite holiday? Thanksgiving. Get says, do you believe in God? No, I don't. Thank you, Luca, for the 6-7 abomination. Amar says, yo, remember me? Is Amar. No, I don't. Hafiz says, have you put your penis in your butthole of a girl? No comment. Pac-Man, well, actually. Zvon says, do you like my profile picture? Yeah. Monkey. Andrad says, are you rating? Yes, I am. Kerr says, aw, timer locked? Yes. Carter says, do you goon? No comment. Pac-Man says, what mall does Darth Vader get his shoes at? The Darth... I hate that joke. Home says, can you juggle? No, I can't. Henry says, rate my profile picture, please. It's a cute cat. No Internet says, am I cooked? There's a thunderstorm. You'll survive. Nirvan says, I didn't know you played music in the background of your streams. Is it at a good volume? Jana says, rate my profile picture, please. 0.5. Meh says Darth Maul. Yeah. FM says Lamaman, Yamal, or Mbappe. Mbappe. Andrad super chats $1 American dollar. Thank you, Andrad. By the way, in 25 minutes, we are going to be surprising a small streamer. We're going to go make a small streamer's day. Leo says, are you gay? No, I'm not. R2 says, does jiggle? No comment. Haley says, I took a poo yesterday. Alright. Sunyan says, Don, you are handsome. Thank you. Eddie says, are you AK, bro? You look tired. I am okay. Block says, cosplay isn't made for a 5,000 super chat. It would have to be higher. Ann says, could I get something? My BD is soon. I don't know what BD is. Mortal says, are you a pooer? I don't know what that is. Nirvan says, volume's alright, I guess. Okay, sounds good. Schlurp says, but bro, the other Indian dude down here in your basement, nobody's in my basement, man. Name says, why you squeeze your eyes when you're reading comments? I don't know, it just happens. Hot Dog says, yo bro, do you vape? No. Lee says, do you shower? I do. Pale says, raid loud 80 ed. He streams at 2. No, that's... You have no idea what's happening. You're an idiot. Eddie says, have you played Manhunt? I haven't. San says, are you getting forced? No. Yusuf says, do you make money every time we send something in chat? No. Dash says, how many cats have you eaten in your life? 0. Twilight says, are you screen addicted? Yes. Kirkby says, hello from the UK again. Hello, person from United Kingdom. Hassan says, what's your favorite video game? I like Minecraft. Osco says, what are your thoughts on kebab? I don't know what that is. Cameron says, you play GTA? No. Phoenix says, is that an illusion on the screen? It's a fractal. Silent says, hello grandma. Hello Silent. Lee says, do you watch anime? No. LH says, what's your favorite music genre? I like rock. Thank you, Luca Soda, for the 6-7 abomination. And thank you again to Combo Life for the laughing disco. Wrong says, it's been 17 minutes since you said remind me to drink water in 5 minutes. Too bad, remind me in another 5 minutes. Cameron says, do you touch your wiener? No comment. Thank you, Glaku, for the Chuck E. Cheese coins, and Sunny. The Fractalist says, do you like reading these comments? Yes. Amity says, emoji. Okay. Alia says, do you want Spain or Argentina to win? Spain. Emily says, I'm bald. Alright. Brawl Star says Don. Unban Levin, I'm his alt. Nobody's banned. Sunyan says Don, what are your screen time daily? My screen time, I don't know, probably in the hours. Thank you, Sunny, for the preschool stars. Jaden says, would you rather be butt-fucked or trans? I'll cross that bridge if and when I get there. Schlurp says, but then whose basement am I in? I don't know, man. Jeffrey says, can we have sex? No. S says, how do you show comments? With a plugin in the description. Pale says, can you twerk when the timer ends? Definitely not. Absolutely not. I already read that. Mr. Cool says, remember me? Diddy Don? Yeah, you're the racial slur guy. MP says, I'm in Canada. The wildfires made the sky yellow for an entire day. Well, that's crazy. Meh says, say something something, I don't want to. Block says, cosplay is a maid for 5,000. Already read that, and I already answered you, dude. Meh says, say, I'm not saying that. Kerr says, so many racist people. Yeah. C says, did you hear about the Siculos outbreak? Is that the Taco Bell thing? Alexa says, is BB Ray valid? I don't know what that is. Thank you, Matteo, for the red card. Ray says, I'm trapped. Can you let me out now? No, you're not trapped. Get says racism. Okay. Locke says, can you lick my tasty balls? No. M says, mushroom tip leak win. Never. Sandra says, you like sucking dick? No. Meh says, you are such a cutie. Thank you. Eddie says, what's the weirdest comment you've ever been asked? I don't know, man. Pac-Man says, what Vader does Darth his maul? I don't know, dude. Laduki says, should I send 250? I would like that. War says, Gerona. Okay. Thank you again, Matteo, for the red card gift. I appreciate it. Emma says, rate my profile picture. 1. Maddox says, hi. Hello, Maddox. The first captain says, I miss when New York was orange. I didn't see it in person, but it felt apocalyptic. Oh, I haven't seen that. Regin says sodomy. Okay. Mr. Hines says hello. Hello, Mr. Hines. Sonny, I already read that. Thank you, Wrong Star, for the makeup brush. Griffin says penis. Okay. C says, imagine being known as the racial slurs guy. Yeah, that's crazy. John says, I just got diagnosed with testicular cancer. I'm sorry. Mr. Monkey super chats hi. Hello, Mr. Monkey. By the way, that is a ape in your profile picture, not a monkey. Pomni says, bro, rate my profile picture or I'll kick you. Lick you. 0.1. Wiki says, subscribe to this guy. Thank you. But don't do it if you don't want to. Warlike says Gerona, or whatever that is. Zelio says, what are you going to do when the timer ends? Figure it out. Kristen says, answer me. Here's an answer. By the way, the answer to what the timer ends is right there. If you just read the text right there. Ava says, rate my profile picture, please. Oh, that's pretty cute. Lockdown says, suck the semen out of my balls. I don't want to. FM says, what is your favorite game? Minecraft. Trend says, have you seen the trend that has been making people insecure? No, I haven't. Trend kill. Interesting username. Sunnian says, Don, what? I already read that, man. Judge says, you're gay. No, I'm not. Shane says, do you know you might not remember me, but can you maybe try your best to remember me? No, I don't care to. Sheriff says, are you left-handed? I am right-handed. Locke says racism. Okay. Ahmed says fake super chat. Alright. Block says, rate my profile picture. I don't even know what's happening. Darker says, can you write my profile picture? Maybe if you spell correctly. Bro says blank. Alright. MG says, is he mech mine though? I have a big forehead. I do. Matthew says WZ. Alright. Joe says water time. I'll wait until the end of the stream. Greatest says, what's the cringiest fandom of all time? Digital Circus. Socks Fun super chats. Holy fuck, my plasma ball thing just exploded. What is a plasma ball? Is that similar to a lava lamp? By the way, thank you again to Mr. Monkey for the super chat. I noticed how your profile is AI. Zine says, do you like chicken? Yes. Rublox says, big shout out to you, bro. I love your live streams. Are good. Keep up with the content. Peace. Bye. You says, rate my profile picture. 1. Rebecca says, Dawn doesn't beg for donations. People, send if you can. Okay. Mr. says, on my half, I didn't know my name was a slur, and I did change it. How did you find that name then? Petal says, do you like Yana? I don't know who that is. Sandra says, do you like reading comments or licking? Reading comments. Schlur says, yo bro, I think I'm drunk on Monster Energy. Okay. Alright. 1 second please, 1 second please. Rudolph says, rate my profile picture. 0.1. Sand already read that. Magnetic says sane. Okay. Shane says, alright I guess. Okay. Cameron says, you are bald. I am not bald. MP says, Don, where can I find the Discord? I don't know. I'm not in charge of the server. War says, Jerona. Alright. Intrusive says, rate my profile picture. 3. Eli says, song recommendation. Ascension Bloodlines. Sandra says, do your family love you? No comment. Misty says, my left kidney exploded. Oh, I'm sorry. You should go to the hospital. Rebecca says, what's your Cash App, Don? My Cash App is Don Benitez likes money. That is my Cash App. 48 says, rate my profile picture. 3. Titty says, rate my profile picture. I wish I could see the cat's eyes. Ahmed says, Don, put me in his base. I did not do that. Spooky says, do you remember me? I recognize your profile picture. Wild says, does your dad know you're gay? Not even I know that I'm gay. Des says, rate my profile picture. 1. Sock super chats. Have you seen the funny videos online where for some reason traffic cones are hella good at skateboarding? No. What does that even look like? If you want to, Socks, you can send me a video of that on Discord. To my, like a direct message, not on the server. Phil says face reveal when I'm doing that right now. Plax says everyone should sub and rate my profile picture. No. Sandra says drink or I'll deep throat you. You're bluffing. Matteo says his own Cash App, but that looks fake though. Hargender says hi. Hello, Hargender. Always says, are you sleepy? I am not sleepy. By the way, Rebecca, if anyone sends my Cash App, I'm not going to be able to see it because I don't have it pulled up, so that's awkward. I'll see it after the stream though. Mass says grapey. Okay. So I'm sorry if you send something. Victoria says, do you like Yana? I don't know who that is. Pac-Man says, what are you saying, man? Kryn says, I love the TV animation background. Thank you. Warlike says, Jerona. Okay. Alright. Seam says, you seem eager to get this over with. That's incorrect. Jara says, Argentina or Spain? Spain. Bryson says, rate my profile picture. A fish, that's cool. Lockdown says, if you don't throat me, I will knife myself. Don't do that, dude. Life is worth living. Mister says, you should listen to Sublime. No, I shouldn't. Hardender says, penis emoji. Okay. Z says, do you remember me? Triple Z. No, I do not. 1 second, please. 1 second, please. I'm doing something. I'm busy. It's Vox says, do you remember me or rate my profile picture? Yeah, those are the NPC comments. Zine says, duh. Okay. Alright. Tack says, are you gay? NPC comment. G-Man says, W or L profile picture? W. Ava says, you should listen to Rodawave. I'm not taking music recommendations, sorry. Sandra says, I don't have gag reflexes. Okay, you do you. Petal says, do you like Yana? I don't know who that is. KH says, is your dad proud of you? No comment. Ava says it's fine. Alright. I'm glad you don't mind. Dieko says, what is your biggest dream? I do want to eventually make a Minecraft server. Googly says, rate my profile picture. Oh, that's kind of weird and kind of disturbing. Turo says, donate or don't. By the way, thank you again to Beastie Rick for the flow state gift. The Daily says, hi. Hello, Daily. Snar says, rate my profile picture. Cute, awkward dog. Cashmon says, sub to this man. Or don't. Oliver says, my father. Alright. Lil says, I'm like toes, but no one will ever see this. I saw it. Name says, choose other comments. What? Block says, suck the cum of my penis. No, I'm not into that. Lucas says, hi. First time on your stream. Please notice me. And guys, sub to him. Or don't. Branted says, hi. Hello, Branted. A says, remember me? No. J says, rate my profile picture. Boring, lame. Branted says, hi. Hello, Branted. Nirvan says, the shirt you have on looks like what? King says, rate my profile picture. I give it a 1. MVP says, hi. Hello, MVP. Z says, erectile dysfunction is common with elderly men. Okay. Manlike says, this is fake, by the way. My stream is not fake. Dilek says, do you like the vegan teacher? I haven't watched the vegan teacher. 1 second, please. Silly says, do you game live? Not yet. Man says, I was joking. I don't know what you're referring to. Gerfel says, poo. Okay. SNM says, masturbating, ejaculating emojis. Okay. Nelly says, hi. Hello, Nelly. Lucas says, yay. Thank you. You're welcome for whatever. Sacha says, IDH. Okay. I don't know what you're saying, dude. 1 second, please. 1 second, please. I'm doing something. I'm busy. Give me a second, guys. T13 says, I'm gay, but Don is too. No, I'm not. Hargender says, penis emoji. Okay. Mr. Jelk says, slimy dildo juice. Dildo juice. Sex toys don't ejaculate. 1 second, please. I'm doing something. I am busy. 1 second. Okay, I'm back. Easy says, what is the name of the video in the background? It's in the description. Skizzy says, hi. Hello, Skizzy. Ah says, can you suck it? No, I don't suck penis. Skizzy says, hi. Hello again. Cameron says, can you deep throat me? I'm not into that. P-Money says, Girona. Okay, alright. Dilek says, in a few months, I'm gonna get foot surgery. Good luck. By the way, thank you again to, Beastie Rick for the flow state gift. I appreciate it. Nelson says, can you suck my dit? No. Silly says, do you always wear the same exact shirt? Yes. The Daily says, hi. Hello, Daily. 1 second, please. I'm doing something. I am busy looking for a person to raid. I don't know who to raid yet. I may have found a person. Susie says, Argentina or Spain, who will win World Cup? I'm thinking, 1 second, please. I think I found a guy. I think Argentina is gonna win. Mr. John says, hi, PP. Hello. Cohen says, you're funny. Thank you. I appreciate it. King says, I respect it. Thanks. Eric says, are you Hispanic? Yes, I am. Thank you, Anime Edits, for the preschool star, the gift. Mister says, can't you block sex comments? I don't mind sex comments. Nelson says, ass suckered. Okay. Alright. Okay. 1 second, please. I'm looking as to who to raid. Who do I raid? Ruth says, what are your hobbies? I like video editing. Hassan says, how do you see this strategy evolving over the next 3 to 5 years? I think, evolving? I mean, there's not much to evolve. There's not much to change. Yeah, do you have any ideas? I don't know. This seems like, as far as like the Bojang Super Chats, weird juxtaposition between the brain rot comments and the background music, Lamau. Yeah, I guess classical music and penis, sex, yeah, it's a weird contrast. Okay says, you love Israel? Love? No comment. Nelson says ass suckered. Okay. Sunyan says raid someone. Yeah. I'm looking for someone who to raid. I'm not sure who to do that yet. Which person? Maybe this guy? Naruto says rate my profile picture. Terrible. Skizzy says, what's your favorite dinosaur? The Velociraptor. Nelson says shit. Okay. Pod says me. You don't even know what a raid is. Nor says raid me. You guys are idiots. You guys have no idea what's happening. Skullsy says rate my profile picture 1. RX says raid Creekcraft. That's stupid. He already has lots of viewers. Dilek says, guys, can you stop saying inappropriate stuff to him? No, I don't mind. Seam says take care, Don. You too. Have a good day, man. Webb says rate my profile picture 1. Aldene says raid me. I know what a raid is. Tell me what a raid is then. Brian says what even is a raid? It's when we go surprise a small streamer and go to their stream. Life says I like your background. Thank you. Ellie says I rate your song recommendation 6 out of 10. Okay. Alright. Nellout says pickles are crunchy. That's true. The Real says Kane is dead is in my head. Okay, I don't care. Who cares about Digital Circus? Ez says, is the raid on YouTube? Yes, it is. I only stream on YouTube. Razor says, who is your favorite YouTuber? Salc1. Zen says, my name is Penis. Okay. Wrong says, have you played Red Dead 1 or 2? I played both. 1 second, please. Who do I raid? I'm having trouble finding someone. I wish I had a helper. Garden says, give me a shout out. No, you're an idiot. Z says, do you have purple moldy armpit hair? No, I don't. Slayer says, stinky fart butt. Okay. Alright. 1 second, please. I'm doing something. Maybe this guy? Stem says, the term is vertically atypical streamer. Small is derogatory. Okay. Life says, what time is it for you? It's, in the daytime. Mahir says, do you like GTA? I do. Dilek says, why are you making fun of everyone with that baby voice? I don't do it to everyone. Hassan says, what would it take for you to feel 100% confident moving forward with this? I already am confident. I mean, like, to make it my full-time job, more money. Silly says, I will sub to you. Thank you. Mango says, Mandy's Alan. I don't know what you're saying. Pad says, raid Mike the paper engineer. I don't trust you. Probably a bad recommendation. Chance says, do you like my profile picture? No, I don't. By the way, I'm actually going to add 10 minutes to the timer. I'm not going to add any more, though. Pac-Man says, Darth, what? Dude, I don't care, man. Dude, I don't care. Rudolph says, please raid me. I only get 1 viewer. Are you live right now? Ariel says, hey, Don. Just found out I'm having another kiddo. That's incredible. Congratulations. A55 says, if you don't remember me, rate my... I don't care, man. Garden says, 1 second, please. 1 second, please. I'm doing something. I'm busy. Okay, I'm back. Where are you from? I'm from the US. Nirvan says, your shirt looks nice. Thank you. Your boy says penis. Alright. Silly says, I will sub to you. Thank you. Matteo says, 1 second, please. That's me. Laughing says, raid me. I bet you're not even streaming. Razor says, what do I do if my brother is gay and has a crush on me? Ask him to see a therapist. 2D says hi. Hello, 2D. Okay, I think I found someone. Yeah, I think I found someone. Aldene says Roth me. No, you don't know what a raid is. Crash says Argentina or Spain. I want Spain to win. Childhood says hi. Hello, Childhood. Jack says hello. Hello, NPC. Carter says get a job. I don't talk about my job. Naruto says, hey, you hate my profile picture? I do. 75 says, will you really stop the timer when it's over? Yes, I will. Just look at my other streams. The other streamers copied me. I'm the one that invented the timer. 2D says, how is your day? Good. Filipino says, chill guy, thank you. Silent says, congrats on kiddo. Yeah, congrats to that one guy. Crazy says, are you good at Fortnite? I am good at Fortnite. Hargender says, you the best. Thank you, I appreciate it. Thank you. 1 second, please, I'm doing something. 1 second, please. Jackson says, it's my birthday. Happy birthday. Streeter says, do you play Brawl Stars? I do not. I hate that game. Jace says, hey dude. Hello, Jace. Roblox says, hello. Hello, Roblox NPC. Hassan says, what was the most surprising lesson or mistake you encountered while working on this project? The most surprising lesson or mistake? I don't know. Well, I was expecting this to be a lot more harder, but it's actually really easy. And I actually expected to, like, feel bad from hate comments, but I really don't care. Garden says, penis emoji, okay. Florin says, hi, hello, Florin. Emmanuel says, IBK, okay. Nelson says, hey, Digbic, hello, Nelson. The Daily says, how old are you? I'm an adult, that's all I'll say. 1 second, please. 1 second, please, I'm doing something important. Slayer says, butthole, okay. Shamu says, hello, Queen Dawn, hello, Shamu. Mr. Boy says, my pee-pee fell off. What do? You should go to the hospital. Roach says, this is the smartest content farm. Thank you. Ellie says, any book recommendations? You should read the essay, Self-Reliance. Nelson says, hello, Don. Hello, Nelson. Razor says, Italian or Mexican food? Mexican food. Intrusive says, bro, you need a damn haircut. Yeah, I do. To be honest, you're right. Rongo says, you look 23 years old. Maybe you're right. Mon says, hey, did your testes heal from last stream? They were never injured. Sunyan says, raid some Steal a Brain Rot streamer. No, I'm not gonna raid some child. That's wrong. NFL says, I cut my balls. Oh, that's horrible. Matteo says, don't cut your hair, let it grow. Maybe, yeah. Garden says, you gay. Okay. Liam says, are you gay? No. By the way, to that one person that was angry about me increasing the timer, like, I think it's fair because I've gotten so many super chats recently and gifts, so I think it makes sense. Max says, look up and say yes 10 times. No, that's stupid. Ariel says, I like the hair. Thank you, Ariel. Contastic says, rail me, bro. Trust. No. Muhammad says, I like your hair. Thank you. Slayer says, Kim Jong-un. Okay. Danger says, hello, I'm awake. Hello, Danger. Pad says, I enjoy watching your streams. I've been subbed for so long. Thank you. Mr. says, raid La Charles. Tell me more about him. I bet he is a bad streamer. Brian says, what do you like more, calcium or magnesium? I like magnesium. Kerr says, have a good day, Don. You too, Kerr. Lucas says, if you read these emojis, I'm gonna give $50. You're a liar, and I don't care. Bad deal anyways. Liam says, are you gay? I am not gay. Danger says, what's your favorite drink? Coke. Plen says, what's the brand of the TV behind you? It's a Sanyo TV. Pac-Man says, Darth. Alright. SN says, where's the Discord? Well, friend me on Discord, and I'll invite you to the server. Thank you, Nike, for the 6-7, and Gabby for the stars. Nelson says, Digbic is gay, don't rate him. There's not someone named that. Baba says, give me a cookie. I don't know you. Z says, I just want to say you matter. Don't let anyone tell you different. Jesus loves you. Thank you. I appreciate it. 1 second, please. I'm doing something important. I am busy. Lucas says, what about 100? What about 100? You tell me, dude. You tell me. 1 second, please. I'm doing something. Okay, there we go. Crazy says, do you make more money than the average salary in America? Sorry, that's private. Muhammad says live. Okay, alright. Slayer says, farting my pillow is satisfying. That's gross. Z says, do you like uranium? No, I don't. King says, you got good vibes. Thank you. I appreciate it. 1 second, please. Dang it. Why can't I'm having trouble rating people. Z says, Japanese symbol for beginner. I don't know what you're saying. Plen says, what's the brand of the TV behind you? It's already answered that, man. Pay attention. Sunyan says, lock the timer, bro. It's already locked. Grill says, how does the chat reading work? A Google Chrome extension. Mr. Cool says, 1 second. Homosexual erection. Alright. Mr. Boy says, emu penis. Alright. Caitlin says, hello, Caitlin. Danger says, I like the hair, by the way. Thank you, Caitlin. 1 second, please. Oh my god, why is rating people so difficult? I gotta hire someone to help me. 1 second, please. Rongo says, do you have a headphone dent? No. Salt says, gay. Okay. Afe says, him. I don't know what you're saying. Poor says, boy, drink water, I'll touch you. You're bluffing, man. You're not gonna force me. Blue says, would you rather be gay or a gamer? Gamer. 1 second, please. Okay. Maybe this guy is rateable. The first captain says, if you know, you know. I don't know. Plan says, what's the brand of that dude? You're so annoying. Channing says, how do you get on there so he reads your comments? You figured it out? You figured it out? Easy says, raid. I don't trust someone with that profile picture. You look like an idiot. Danger says, ain't no way you called me Caitlin. Oh, I'm sorry. PJ says, hi. Hello. PJ. Matteo says, if I had $1 for every time you said 1 second, please. 1 second, please. 1 second, please. I'm looking for someone to raid. Okay. I found a guy. Nelson says, stop saying homosexual stuff. No, that's okay. Baseball says, what's a raid? It's when we go to different streamers' stream and just surprise them. Say hello. Thank you, Chaco, for the sunshine thing. Kyoto says, are you mentally okay? I am. Tunin says, what's up? I was here like 30 minutes ago. Hello, Tunin. SN says, what's your user? Look in my YouTube About Me description. Adrena says, hi, H. Okay. Hello, Adrena. Thank you, Gabrielle, for the 15 preschool stars. Kaneko says, cough so loud. I don't want to do that. We are going to raid some reaction streamer guy. Kind of like Asmongold, just reacting. Randy says, Don, I'm drooling. Okay. Zand says, hi. Hello, Zand. Brazil says, do you have a partner? I am. Keep that private. 1 second, please. I'm doing something. 1 second, please, ladies and gentlemen. I am doing something important. Okay, there we go. Alright, okay. Sorry, I'm busy. Bear says, when is the raid? And look at that. Read that. Michael says, you play CS2? No, I don't. Nelson says, not really. I don't know what you're referring to. Roach says, rate my profile picture. 3. Jonathan says, hate your streams. Sounds good. Cameron says, my wiener hurts because of last night. You got the wrong person, dude. Wrong person. 1 second, please. I'm doing something very important. Thank you, Anime Edits, for the preschool star. Sawyer says, what the hell are these comments, bro? I swear. Yeah, they're weird. MacFox says, look up and say yes 3 times. No, that's sexual. Hassan says, if you had to start all over again from scratch, what would you do differently? I would take school more seriously. I'm gonna add 2 more minutes to the timer. By the way, it's not weird for me to do this because the timer's locked anyways, so if you think about it, it doesn't make that much of a difference. Vandal says, bro, gain power. Alright. Silence says, spam W, thank you. NFL says, love the streams, man. Thank you. I appreciate it. Alright. To make the to let new viewers know, we are going to be rating a streamer in 5 minutes. Random says, bro, what is it? Tim says, bro, stop axing time. I think that'll be the last of it. Randy says, Don is the king of weird and we are his subjects. Yeah. Aw says W, thanks. Rye says, you like turtles? They're cute, thanks. Channing says, rate my profile picture 1. Just says, hi, hello, Just. SN says, it didn't work. What didn't work? BS says, I goon at 3 AM. Alright. Thank you, Bam, for the sparkles. Bloxfruit says, get him to 500 likes, and I will give him a $500 super chat. Oh, thank you in advance. Axel says, these chats are weird. Yeah, they are. Mr. Boy says, fuck homophobia. Yeah, I agree. Ah says W. Okay. Ken says, rate my profile picture. Oh, that's pretty modern art-ish. Mr. Rival says, I'm gay. Okay. Ventura says, hi, I'm back. Hello, Ventura. Easy says, you tell me what other profile picture should I use. Something not with AI. Z says, if I had a tear for every time someone said gay, I'd be swimming in sadness. Okay. Jake says, are we rating? Obviously, yeah. Hen says, rate my... I give it a 5. SN says, the Discord, it work. Well, I'll accept your friend request after the stream then. L says, hi, I'm back again. Hello, L. Abdul says, go sleep, man. I'm not sleepy, though. Cam Man says, LGBT emoji. Hayden and Bonnie are gay. Bonnie loves Hayden, and Hayden, okay, whatever. I guess says, who do you think will win the World Cup? I'm thinking Argentina. I am says, do you like Zidane? I don't know who that is. Monarch says, hi, Daddy Don. Is there any huzz now? No. Hassan says, how do you see a specific new trend / technology changing this in the next 5 years? Well, I mean, maybe YouTube becomes more strict about hate speech and stuff like that, and I won't be able to do this. Mustic says, rate my profile picture. 1. Khan says, I ate my grandma. Alright. Matteo says, raid me, replace the D with a P. Rape you? I don't want to do that. Sammer says, hi. Hello, Sammer. Aster says, what's your name? Don. Jelly says, show us your headset then. I don't have one. Bess says, I love gooning. Alright. System says, now it's 2 minutes. Yeah. By the way, when we do the raid, be respectful, follow their chat rules. Kristen says, I love Animal Hospital. Okay. Mr. Boy says, I'm stuck in 2007, help. I can't help with that. SN says, the Discord didn't work, my bad. Well, you messed something up then. Fizz says, spam W, y'all. Thank you. I already read that. Baseball says, tell these bums to stop commenting weird stuff. No, I don't mind. Sunyan says, yo, Don, who are we rating? You'll figure it out when the timer ends. By the way, again, when you do the raid, don't spam. Be fun. Be funny. Ask random questions. Some says, are you homeless? No. Says spam W, thanks. Liam says, what's up, Don? How are you? I'm fine. BS says, I love you, thanks. Adore says, what's your favorite hobbies? Video editing and going on walks. Randy says, we love you, Don. Thank you, Randy. Pixel says, Don, what software you use? Look in the description. Nelson says, holy shit, what the fuck are these gay comments? Yeah, I don't know. Mr. Rival says, say I, spell map, and say ness. Penis. Oh my gosh, that's crazy. Cinnamon says, what's the stream about? It's about reading people's chat messages. Danger says W, thank you. Capitano says, rate my profile picture, brother. Looks corny. Cam Man says, favorite Minecraft mob, the skeleton. Cinnamon says, okay. Alright. By the way, again, in 1 minute, we are going to be rating a streamer. We're going to be going to a different stream and surprising them. King says, you smell like shit, JK. Okay, whatever. Lil says, why do you act like that? Act like what? Silent says, Baza, alright. Okay. The Daily says, who's? Alright. Card says, I'm killing myself tonight. Please don't do that. Sup says, do you eat shit? No, I don't. Hen says, green apple or red apple? Red apple. Red says, John Pork is behind you. No, he's not. Bear says, W raid. We haven't even done it yet. Channing says, I'm going to BMX day in San Diego. Okay, that sounds fun. Baseball says, yo, is that the real Cam Man? No, it's not. Xlight says, I like turds. You do you. Wizzy says, you're my favorite YouTuber. Thank you. Chick says, I love your videos. Thank you. Silent says, Goon Day, hooray. Okay, thank you, Mr. Otter, for the Chuck E. Cheese coin. Vortex says, 30 seconds till the raid. Exactly. Zan says, rate my profile picture. 0.5. B-Dave says, I busted. You're weird. Rudolph says, raid me, I'm live. Absolutely not. Alright, we are going to be raiding a streamer. Ador says, raid now. We are raiding right now. In just a second, there's going to be a button at the bottom of the screen. Click that button to join the raid. If you don't see the button, go to my channel and click posts, and you'll find the link there. See you in the raid, guys. Click the button at the bottom. See you there.